Don't mind that. I forgot I was checking stuff. But yeah, hi, we're here. I forgot to set it to the thing. And normally, because I'm normally in the studio mode, so I have to transition stuff. That's my bad. But we're here. Hi, yeah.
Oh boy, we have one person in the chat right now.
Yeah. Hello.
That probably is me.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I have myself pulled up too. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. And beyond that one, you got to see a little behind the scenes. Even
we
though
are the collective
you couldn't
one.
hear anything. But
I'm in the chat for anyone who's interested. Wants to talk to me. Oh, one people's.
We still have not decided who's going first, but we're here to talk about movies and stuff, and I have the shortest list.
I love the Sentinel fried chicken bucket just sitting on the bottom.
Still there. That's there from the first time we did this. There was just a big gap on the screen, and I was like, I don't like that there's just a hole there, so I just put that in there to fill the space.
I don't think I've watched any of our. I've rewatched some of our D&D games just to like see certain parts, like the one game where like your internet crapped out and we were just like like at the cliffhanger. I was like, I wanted to see how you did that. And I love you. Like my internet will crap out in 3, 2, 1, and then it just cut to me going, "Are we back on?"
Yes, that was a fun little editing session.
Yeah, I had a laugh out of that one.
I had to catch up entirely. It was not fun. Like the actual like stream itself, literally the stream. The entire time my internet was gone, it like recorded that, and then once I got my internet back, it started broadcasting from that moment on. So
yeah, you said that.
That was fun. So I had to cut all of that out. But anyway,
hi everyone.
This is the wonderful graphic I made in 5 minutes to help
you
facilitate this.
I love it.
Hey, whatever works.
Yes.
Oh.
It doesn't need to be complicated. It just needs to show what we're looking at.
Yep. So we have one person in chat right now. So hi, one person that's probably either Brendan or myself.
It'd be like that sometimes.
Yeah. So
who's starting?
It's just the 3 of us. If anyone is watching and not like on, but just the 3 of us for all of our YouTube fans who will watch this once it's on the VODs or at any other time. Because I think you have VODs on Twitch too, don't you?
Yeah, but those only last for like 3 months, I think, and then they get auto-deleted.
Oh, okay.
Unless I like actually save them, but I just...
Now I know why there is a VOD channel.
That is why I set that up, yep.
YouTube.
I set that up so that I could permanently have the VODs available at all times.
Nice.
Unless that channel miraculously gets taken down for some reason, which is very much a possibility because video game music can sometimes be a pain.
Yeah.
Found out recently, Ornstein and Smo's theme is actually copyrightable.
Huh. That sucks. They have a good theme.
Because my Dark Souls fist run that I'm doing right now got flagged for that, so that's fun.
That sucks.
Yeah, it'd be like
Brendan, I restarted Dark Souls on Sunday. You're talking about it made me want to restart it.
I did a randomizer over the weekend.
Dark Souls 1?
Yeah, Dark Souls
1.
Yeah.
I made it all the way to Sen's Fortress in one day.
Yeah, I did a randomizer over the last couple of days, and it was not a good time, but it was a good time. I ended up beating it.
Mine's not a randomizer. Mine's just Dark Souls.
I'll probably talk about that a lot tomorrow when I'm playing Dark Souls and have to discuss.
I will attempt to catch your. I'll attempt to catch your stream because I've enjoyed watching you play Dark Souls 1 and your fist run.
It's fun. I'm enjoying doing fists.
Just punching things.
I've always wanted to punch my way through Dark Souls.
No weapons, just
fist weapons exclusively. So only weapons that are on your fist.
And they're notoriously not fantastic. I mean, at least community-wide, I don't think they're considered very good.
I mean, Cestus in 1 is a good offhand, but that's it. You don't really do fist weapons as your primary weapon in Dark Souls. But
gotcha.
Unless you're doing a quote-unquote challenge run, then you do. I've always wanted to punch through it. So.
Challenge run.
It's one of the easier challenge runs you can do.
When you've mastered Dark Souls.
I've played
Dark Souls?
Never.
Oh. You got hype on the train.
Any of them.
Sekiro.
You're picking up Elden Ring, aren't you?
Yep, Elden Ring comes out in like 2 weeks.
I know. I'm so excited.
Cuphead has destroyed my soul enough that
some of the bosses in that game.
I'm okay.
I've never played Cuphead, so I can't say. I will say at least with Dark Souls, you can kind of level yourself up. So
you literally just have to get good.
Yeah,
exactly.
You literally just have to get good. So.
It's a fun time though. I liked Cuphead.
It is. One of my favorite games.
Yeah, the dice game was pretty fun.
Yeah, the dice game is fun.
For those that don't know, there is a Cuphead dice game that is a lot of fun to play. And
very frantic.
I own it. Ironically, I bought it and I brought it over to my in-laws, aka Brendan's family, and yeah, we beat the entire campaign in like 4 or 5 hours. We just like sat down, I think Thanksgiving night at like 6:30 and played until like 1 a.m. until it was done. We had a fun time.
Roll a dice.
Fast rolling dice. Though we played on easy mode, which gives you like 20 seconds to roll the dice you need. When you and I played, Nick, we did medium, which is 15 seconds, I think. And it was like impossible. I was just like,
I don't know how you could do anything faster than that.
Yeah, 10 seconds is hard. I'm like, how? Like, it's hard, but it's like artificially hard because like I can't control dice. And each side of the die is different. It's not like, oh, some dice have more thing on one side, so I'm more likely to get it. No, they're all one-sided die, and I'm just mash rolling them, praying to God I get what I need to beat these bosses. So yeah. It's fun. I recommend it. I'd say if you can find it for like 35 or 40 bucks. I don't know if I'd pay the full 60 like I did, but if you can find it on sale, I'd buy it. We should do, whenever these happen again, we should do a tabletop simulator stream sometime and pick a board game and stream it.
True. I would love that.
That'd be fun.
Thankfully, I think this... Ooh, that's loud. I think that is a safe song. All right.
Oh, did you put music on?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, music playing in the background.
Yeah, I didn't think about any songs for today.
I just have Swear to My Bones from P5 playing. It's a nice
cool.
Chill tune.
I like some chill tunes. This is chill ranking our favorite films of 2021 and maybe some not films that came out in 2021 but we saw in 2021.
Some curveballs.
Some real curveballs. Got a movie from
2005.
Titanic. No.
First time I've seen it.
First time, Titanic, my favorite film of 2021. James Cameron's Titanic.
Man, my favorite 2021 movie was the train. You know, the train that comes towards the screen. That's my favorite. I saw that for the first time this past year. That's my favorite movie. Just Train. I don't remember what the train that comes. You know, the first movie or whatever. It's my.
Speaking of movies,
Arcane is the best movie.
Speaking of movies, I read something really interesting on. Oh, Matt's in the chat.
Yeah, that's in the chat. Arcane is the best movie. Full stop. Best movie. Watch it all in one sitting. It's a big movie.
But yeah, so I read something interesting. It was today on CNN, which I thought was funny because we were doing this movie ranking about how movies have gotten longer, or people have been saying movies have gotten longer. They gave some examples like last year, Spider-Man was like 2.5 hours. Dune was almost 3 hours. No Time to Die, the new James Bond movie, was like almost 3 hours. And what they said is that back in like the 30s, movies would clock in like about like an hour and 10 to an hour and like 30 minutes. And then in the 60s, they cranked up back to like 2.5 hours. Well, the advent of VHS, because they could only fit so much room on a VHS tape, Hollywood cut back on the length time of their movies. And that's why a lot of movies were like between an hour and a half and 2 hours. So they didn't have to give you 2 VHS tapes, which if anyone remembers when Titanic came out in the 90s, they gave you 2 VHS tapes and it was a lot more expensive. I think when my dad bought my mom Titanic on VHS, it was like $30 or something, which I mean, now it's like, oh, I'll pay $30 for a 4K Blu-ray. That's fine. But like, we're talking like 1999. It's $30, like a $60 movie.
Yeah.
Cutting edge, though. It's the new
Mr. Squiggles. I don't know who Mr. Squiggles is. Hello, Mr. Squiggles.
It's me.
That's you.
I feel like the name's popped up before.
Hey, like hello, and Swift is hammered because you can't see the chat. Our good buddy Darian Kipps is in Florida right now, just on the beach watching this amazing podcast and getting drunk off his skunk.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, unless anyone else has anything fun or interesting to say, let's go ahead and I guess start our list. So I have 10, Nick has 10, and Brennan has 5.
I have a top 5 with 4 honorable mentions because I didn't want to watch any more movies.
Last year.
He doesn't want to qualify them as a part of his list.
Well, they're not from the last year, and if I had one more movie, I would have just done top 10 and said screw it. But I didn't want to watch another movie yesterday, so. Because I watched two of the ones on my list are from yesterday.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, why don't you start us off? Why don't you start with
my top 5?
Yeah. Though before we do get started, I will say this. So we're gonna be ranking these 10 to 1, obviously.
Yeah.
Heads up, I think there might be some spoilers in this stream. Overall, I will probably, at least personally, attempt not to like just start spewing every spoiler for every movie. But if there's something in particular that we do want to talk about that's a spoiler, just be warned that it might happen. And, you know, you've been warned. Definitely. Enjoy.
I know I'm going to probably not say anything spoiler heavy about movies from the last year, but my 4 honorable mentions I feel are on the table. They're old enough.
Back, I mean, watch a movie.
They're most of the ones from my quote unquote honorable mentions are good enough. I think they're old enough at this point that people have either seen them or don't care. So
yeah, so Brennan, why don't you start us off with your number 9? So okay, or do you want Nick and me to start?
Let's do our 10s,
and then we'll start with Nick, you start us off, man. You start us off.
Right. Okay. So my number 10 is Godzilla versus Kong.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I don't remember too much about this movie.
Does anybody?
I didn't watch a lot of movies in the last year, so it has less to do with the actual synopsis of the film, which, to my knowledge and what I remember, is things happen, and then Godzilla and King Kong, they battle it out, looking like two guys in a monkey suit, in a lizard suit, in a miniature city, and beat the crap out of each other. And then they shake hands, and then they walk away from each other and say, "Good game, bro." And that's about as much as I remember of that movie. But what I will say, why? Yes, the reason why is my number 10 is it was like, I think it was my first movie-going experience since the beginning of the pandemic. Even though I didn't go to the theater to watch it, we actually were in Eric's living room watching it. But it was a group of people. Our friend Dylan. Shout out to Dylan Broom, organized a little event.
I was part of that.
Yeah. And we watched it on, just like we had each other on a stream or whatever, you know, like a Zoom meeting, and all watched it together. And that was like the first time that a group of people, for me, since the beginning of the pandemic, actually like got together to like watch a movie and, you know, and get to see everybody's reactions and those kind of things. So it made it a memorable, nostalgic moment for me, and something that I had missed since the beginning of the pandemic. And that was the first movie that did that for me. So that was the first Godzilla movie or King Kong movie that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Really?
And, yeah, I haven't seen anything.
Not a bad one to start with, honestly.
Wow.
So I didn't know. It's linked to previous, like Skull Island and some of those things, right?
14 Godzilla, King Kong Skull Island, and then the sequel to the 14 Godzilla, Godzilla King of the Monsters. Yeah. They're
led up to this.
Yeah, led up to this.
They're big Avengers.
Yeah, it was their big build towards movie, and it didn't disappoint.
That was good.
No, it was a solid movie. I mean, I enjoyed it for my first kind of foray into the big monster verse. So
man, I'll have to sit you down and we'll have to watch some just horrible Godzilla movies. I have Godzilla versus the Smog Monster.
I was gonna say, please show him Smog Monster.
Just so wonderful. That one is so many levels.
Stupid. Well, you got me dumb. After we went on that cruise, you got me actually to watch my first James Bond film.
There we go.
I learned that you love James Bond films. So,
I do.
So maybe you can enter me into a new franchise.
There you go.
And get me to know.
I'll curate you a list of like good Godzilla movies for you to watch, and then I'll curate like these are awful but tons of fun, like Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. Pretty much. I don't want to get too much into like Godzilla movies and like waste the entire stream talking about this, but there's like 3 eras of Godzilla, 4 eras of Godzilla. You got like the early like Showa era, then you got like the Heisei era, and it like all matters like the era in Japan when the movies came out. Then there's the millennial, and then there's these like American ones. And the Showa goes from being like the first film was like super serious. It's like more of a horror movie. It's about the destruction of nuclear warfare. It's a disaster movie. It's well acted. It has good special effects for the 50s. And then like the next movie is Godzilla fights a turtle, and it's so it just does this number real quick.
Got real campy real fast.
2 years, someone sitting at Toho who makes these movies is sitting around and they're like, you know what? last time we had Godzilla fight a giant poop monster. Why don't this movie we have Godzilla actually be dangerous again, and everyone shakes their head and agrees, and then they make a serious Godzilla movie, and then the sequel to that, Godzilla fights another poop monster. So
nice. Hey, one way to make money.
It is one way to make money. I will say, not Godzilla vs. Kong, which is a good movie, but the last Japanese-produced Godzilla film, Shin Godzilla, is amazing, and I think it's the best one since the original. So if you do want a place to start off, either start with the original or start with Shin Godzilla, which I own both of them if you want to come over and watch them sometime.
Yes, we'll have to do that.
This is an invitation for all of stream. Come over and watch Godzilla with me. We'll have a Godzilla stream, and we'll just play Godzilla in the background, and we'll just Mystery Science Theater commentate on it.
There we go.
I own the original King Kong versus Godzilla that this movie is like a remake of, and that Nick is literally a guy in a monkey suit and a guy in a lizard suit,
literally
like, running into each other and doing this number. So
really funny.
It's really funny. I do not have Godzilla vs. King Kong on my list, but I did see it. I did like it. It gets a thumbs up from me.
It is on my list, but it is way higher because I only have a top 5. So
when we get to that, Brendan, if you have anything additional to say about it.
We can get to that when we get to that.
Yep. All right. You want me to do my number 10?
Yes, your number 10.
So my number 10 is the movie that actually bumped Spider-Man No Way Home off of my list, because originally it was my number 10, and I forgot this movie came out, and that is Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time. And say that 10 times fast. So for those who are unfamiliar, what Evangelion is, it is a popular anime franchise from the 90s called Neon Genesis Evangelion, which follows Shinji Ikari as he is forced to pilot a giant mech to fight these things called angels, basically to prevent them from blowing the world up. And it's a super crazy popular anime. I mean, I'm sure you've probably seen like the main, if you've been on the internet, you've probably seen the two main girls, Rei and Asuka at some point. But yeah, so back in 2008, they rebooted this as movies. And we got a movie in, I think it was 2008 or 2009, one in 2011, and then 2013. And then the director, Hideki Anno, which this is like he's the writer, director, this is his baby. He didn't make one of these. And part of the reason is because he made Shin Godzilla. So there's a nice little callback tie in there. But yeah, so this came out last year after being delayed from the pandemic. And it is like legitimately the end of this franchise. I don't think, this poster shows it says bye-bye all of Evangelion. That was their tagline, and they legit mean it. Like, this is the end of it. And ironically, when I first watched this movie, I kind of didn't like it. The first half is really good. It kind of picks off at the cliffhanger the third film ends off on. But then the second half is just all this, like, lore and technobabble that has never been talked about or introduced in any of the other films or the original series, and it just comes at you like rapid speed, and you're just sitting there and you're like, what the hell is anyone talking about right now? What is happening? So it dinged it for me a bit there, which is why it's not higher up on this list, but because it is the last film like in this franchise, it ends everything. It actually wraps up all of the character arcs in like a neat little bow. It provides happy endings. If anyone's familiar with this franchise, the original TV show ends with a movie, and the movie is uber like dark and just cynical and has just a very cynical ending, and this has a very positive ending for everyone. I mean, one of the main character has this terrible relationship with his dad, and in this movie he like forgives his dad in the end. And in the original movie that ended the first the TV show, he murders his dad with his mech. So it kind of a big change there. Another thing, which this is kind of a spoiler, but another thing I really liked is there was a lot of theory going on when these came out that these were actually sequels to the TV show. Because if you know how the TV show ends, like the world gets like destroyed and they have to, stuff is like coming back together at the end. So there was a theory when the second film came out that these were actually sequels because they were just slight little differences between these supposed remakes versus what the TV show was. And this film not only confirms that, but it also confirms that all of the other like spin-offs that have come out that supposedly were non-canon, not part of this franchise, like in an official sense, are also all canon as well. So it kind of introduces this interesting like multiverse, like repeat element that's going on. So I appreciated it for that. But it's my number 10. So Brendan, what's your number 9?
So my honorable mention number 9 of my top 5 is Joker. Actually, I saw Joker for the first time literally like almost a full year ago at this point now.
So Brendan, all your honorable mentions are films that did not come out.
Yes, all of my honorable mentions are movies from before the last year. So Joker I saw for the first time last year in like February. Really good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had some issues with it, which is why it's at the bottom, because it's honestly the only movie I think I actually have like real complaints about, other than maybe Godzilla vs. Kong, but that's just because human plot lines in Godzilla movies are always bad. Mainly the thing that I didn't particularly like, I'm sure the intention was not how I came out of the movie, but I felt the way they handled mental illness more so reinforced stereotypes rather than actually combated it, which is fine. I'm sure that's not what they intended, but it sure felt that way to me. That it was reinforcing all that stuff rather than being like, oh, it's the institutions and society that are the problem, and that needs to change around mental illness and all these stigmas. But it felt, to me, when I watched it, it felt more like it was like, no, this is just how it is. You were right the whole time. Overall, though, still a good movie. I'm sure that wasn't the intention, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Joaquin Phoenix did an amazing job and deserves whatever he got for it, the award or whatever. Oscar, whichever. There's so many different awards at this point. I don't know which one.
I don't think he won anything for this movie. I think he was nominated, but I don't think he won
one. Maybe the movie itself won one. I don't remember.
Maybe it was Golden Globes. I don't think he got the Oscar, but it might have been the Globe.
I know this was definitely a Oscar movie, and you can tell it's an Oscar movie when you watch it, when you know what to look for in Oscar movies. Yeah. The Oscar baiting of movies and stuff that you can kind of, when you pay attention to it, you can kind of see there's a lot going on with those. But it's a great movie, very very good. A lot of great camera work and scenes and cinematography just in general. I had a hard time remembering that this takes place in Gotham and not in like 60s New York or Chicago, but that's fine. That's a me thing, not a movie problem. They established it's Gotham very well. It's a good movie.
It kind of does. I'll agree with you on that, Brendan. It does.
It feels like it's just like 60s Chicago or New York. It doesn't really
feel like it's Gotham. It does just feel like it could be any city. It could be
any
New York,
any major city in like the 60s where gang violence was just constant.
I probably would lean towards Chicago because I think that's where the majority of Christopher Nolan's Batman movies were shot. So when I think of Gotham, I think of some of those set pieces that they have there. But no, I agree with that. Nick, did you see Joker?
I did.
What did you think?
I thought it felt along the same kind of lines as like a Breaking Bad type of like character study of kind of a normal average person. Yes, he had some like to go through the mental health aspect of the character and maybe some of the driving force of why other characters and institutions kind of forced him into this like villainous role, but that there's some sort of outside force that kind of focuses on this one character to create this like villain or anti-hero, type of character. And so all those stories are always interesting to me because I think they're fairly few and far between that we actually get to see some of those kind of characters. And so I think it was an interesting take on the Joker rather than, I think, he's just in most depictions of the Joker now. I don't know much about the DC world, so I could be totally wrong on this, but that the Joker is just kind of this like antagonist to Batman, and he just does it just to like for the game of things. And so it's kind of interesting to like give a deeper backstory to like the common view of why the Joker is the way. It actually felt like, I wonder, after watching this film, I I thought to myself, I'm like, this is something that I think DC could do really well with, is if they focus less on the heroes and actually did more like backstories on their villains. Yeah. Almost like Disney has done with like villainous type of like backgrounds where they focus on, Maleficent or, some of these other, villain kind of origin stories. And so I think DC actually has some really well-known villains that I think would be fun stories to learn more about. So I actually really enjoyed Joker as a movie. So
yeah, Sam and I both really liked it. We saw it in the theaters, and she came out and said it was like the scariest movie she'd seen that year, because just like to watch this person like mentally break down and like
it's very real.
Some like terrible stuff it's like scary. There's like some freaky shit that happens. Going with what you were saying, Nick, for DC, I think they should keep kind of trying to do these, like, I don't know what you want to call them, these prestige movies with their heroes or villains, and because it's just so different. Like, no offense to Marvel or anything, but all Marvel's films are designed to be fun. They're popcorn movies. This is something different, using your comic books as like an inspiration. And that's like, do more of that. We don't have that. Like, do that again, kind of thing.
Yep.
I'll be interested to see what the new Batman looks like, because that looks like they're going for something. It'll either be something different or it'll just be Christopher Nolan's Batman all over again.
Yeah.
But
all I know is Robert Pattinson looks fine in the Batsuit, and the Riddler is a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Which I am always excited to see the Riddler.
Catwoman too.
Because Riddler is easily one of my favorite Batman villains, because he's just some dude that likes to do puzzles. And it is a great villain.
I just hate it's 3 hours long. Like, I don't mind a long movie, but
gosh.
Yeah, I'm like, do we really need to live in a world where there's a 3-hour Batman
film? Yeah.
I was like, do I need to see Batman beat the crap out of people for 3 hours? No, I don't.
Well, we'll see though. I might earn the 3-hour time.
Michael Reeves is directing it, and he did Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War of the Planet of the Apes, which are like two of my favorite science fiction films and are amazing. So I have high hopes that it will be good. So, Brennan, you good? You good to move on to Nick?
That is.
Nick, what's your number? Numero 9.
Numero 9. Speaking of more superhero films, I am a Marvel fanboy. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
I need to watch this still. I really want to watch it.
I have not seen this one yet.
It is the only one out of the new Marvel movies or even TV series that I've watched several times. Melissa and I think I've watched it 2 or 3 times now. And it was, I thought it was an excellent origin into the beginning of the new era of Marvel. It was, we get fewer and fewer origin stories in Marvel just because it's like, there's so much of a universe that they dedicate just one movie to just one character now is kind of few and far between. And so I think it was a nice start to the very beginning that out of all Marvel films, this one feels like you could watch beginning and end and not have to watch a single other Marvel film, which is a great spot to kind of start the new kind of era in. So if you've never joined, at least you could watch this and not have to know really anything about anything else. And so I thought it was fun. And in one of the like a Black Widow came out before this, and I could take or leave Black Widow, and I enjoyed it, but it doesn't really push into the next era of things. And so this along with kind of Kong, this was the first movie out of the Marvel second Marvel era that has now opt out, and I really enjoyed it. And so I think that's where it holds up more than like Eternals or anything like that. I think Shang-Chi I really enjoyed, just the popcorn, as Ethan called it, the popcorn movie that it was. So
I've not seen it. I want to see it.
Yeah, I really need to see it, but
it's on my list.
one of the I have seen some of the clips from it because I watch Corridor Crew and they do a lot of breakdowns of VFX and stunts and stuff. They've done stunts for Shang-Chi. Oh man, the bus fight, the oneer on the bus. Any action movie that does a oneer as a fight scene is immediately a better movie in my opinion.
One of the things that I'm just seeing in like a lot of action sequences that Hollywood likes in the last few years is just one cut car action scene where the camera moves around all different angles, but it doesn't cut anywhere, and it's just and it is kind of funny where it's like, all right, it was a little bit like when GoPros started entering into Hollywood, and you're like, you got to cut to the GoPro camera, in the water or whatever. It feels a little bit like this. Yeah. Where someone's like, oh yeah, that was super cool, like in Baby Driver, or some other film.
I think I saw it in Atomic Blonde, I think first, for like a big one take. I'm sure someone did it before that.
But there's one takes everywhere with fight scenes.
And it's just so funny to see, like, it always has to do with some sort of vehicle.
Yeah, it's like always in a vehicle. It's because it's easy to do hidden cuts in a vehicle for one take.
Yeah, and you pass the camera around in the car and around the car and all sorts of stuff. So it's kind of funny that that's popping up a lot more. But well done. Yes,
I
action. If you like classic kung fu films, it is a nice like callback to that with kind of modern takes to that. There's a lot of cool action sequences that I've never really watched any of those films, Kill Bill or nothing around in that era. So there's not some nostalgia to it for me, but I thought they were neat action sequences anyways. So
very cool. Yeah, I'd say from everything I've heard about it, this seems to be everyone's favorite Marvel movie this year, minus Spider-Man, which is Spider-Man, so you kind of figured that was going to take the cake. But I don't think I've heard a single person say that. Like, I've heard people say they don't like Black Widow. I've heard people say they don't like Eternals. I have not heard a single person say I dislike Shang-Chi. So I will definitely have it on my list to check it out soon. Because I always appreciate a good martial arts film.
Oh yeah. A lot of great stuff there.
You care if I move on to my number 9?
Go for it. You're the only number 9 left.
My number 9 is the Disney classic Cruella. So this is a film I did not anticipate to like. I did not want to see it. My wife wanted to see it. And I was pleasantly surprised, and I was pleasantly surprised a little later in the film than I anticipated to be. So this movie has, well, I guess to explain what this movie is, for those that don't know, this is part of the whole Disney remake, live action, spin-off, whatever you want to call it, where they're like taking all these old movies and they're remaking them. Cruella focuses on Cruella de Vil, the 101 Dalmatians villain, and it's basically how she gets her start. And it's one part The Devil Wears Prada, one part Ocean's 11, one part counterculture 60s, and one part like girl power movie. And none of it should work, and all of it works really well. The only thing I'll say about this movie is the opening of this movie focuses on her as like a little girl. Like the first 10, 15 minutes, I think, of the film. And it is so laughably bad that when we saw this movie, we were in a small film in like small town Michigan. This theater is like 20 seats in it, maybe. So real tiny theater when we're seeing this thing. And in the film, her mom this is a spoiler, but it happens in the first like 5-10 minutes. Her mom goes to get like money from someone, and she gets attacked by attack Dalmatians that push her off a cliff, and it kills her. And I actively, when the Dalmatians run into the lady and knock her off the cliff, I actively started laughing in this packed tiny little theater because it was so dumb. But once you get past that moment, the rest of the movie's great. I mean, I haven't really liked a lot of the Disney live actions. I thought Cinderella was okay. I thought Aladdin was okay, but none of them have really been like great in my opinion. It's a couple I haven't seen Pete's Dragon or The Jungle Book, but like this is the first one where I walked out of the theater and was like, yeah, like that was really, really good. Emma Stone kills it in the role, and she's scene stealing. Every single scene that she's in is just phenomenal. I know some people kind of complained a little bit because she's not like as evil as Cruella is, but I mean, she's the main character, so like, what do you think they're gonna have her like butcher dogs on screen or something and be like, your main character, everyone? So I really like this movie. I liked it way more than I thought I was going to. I probably said that 4 times now, but I don't know. Did you guys see this one?
No.
I did, and so
no
you
interest.
actually, I did not have this on the list of movies that I had watched last year, and it reminded me that I actually watched it. And I really, really liked it. I was surprised. I thought the same thing. Melissa wanted to watch it, and I wasn't really like too interested in it. And but then I watched along and was like pleasantly surprised that I loved all of the kind of like designer revenge kind of like back and forth, and it was very clever. All of the different like little tricks. Like I actually was like really interested in the next like dress or like big sequence that she was going to do in the next time, because it was so interesting, and it actually felt like in this era of like social media, that kind of stuff, that it felt very like things that happen today, and these big kind of moments that everybody wants to talk and tweet and all about. So I thought it was really clever.
Did you see Cruella, Brendan? I'm
No,
assuming not.
I had no interest in it.
So you know, it's funny. It is, if you don't have any interest in it, I actually really recommend watching it.
I'm sure I would enjoy it. It looks fine.
Good.
I was like, I don't care to watch this when it was coming out, so I just never got around to it.
It came out. It was one of those movies where I'm like, what? Who wants this movie?
Yeah,
like,
who asked for
Cruella what do you want with a
live
action Cruella de Vil movie? I mean, like, I like 101 Dalmatians, the animated film. I think it's really good. But like, who's pining for a movie about Cruella de Vil? And it was good. We don't own it yet. It's surprisingly one we don't have yet. It may make me go out and buy it this weekend. But it's, yeah, that's it. Brandon, move on to your 8.
All right, so my 8, which is technically an honorable mention still, but whatever, it's fine. I kind of had them ordered in my head anyways, which is Venom. I watched this literally yesterday. I actually very much enjoyed Venom. I really liked it. It's definitely a movie where if you go into it expecting 100% perfect comic accuracy, you're going to hate it and not like it, because it's not comic accurate at all, because it doesn't have anything to do with any of the stuff that goes on with Eddie Brock in the actual origin story of Venom. But I think as a standalone, if you're going to do Venom by himself, it worked very well, in my opinion, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I think the best thing they did in that movie was the fight scene in the fog, where all the soldiers, and they throw smoke grenades out, and Venom just like eats them, and it gets really cloudy and foggy. I think that was almost perfect for that movie, because it helps kind of hide how not super great the Venom CG looks, and still really shows how powerful and scary he can be as Venom, and just everything about it just felt perfect for that movie. And is a really, really good example, in my opinion, of what that movie is. I know people are not the biggest fan of how the Venom symbiote itself actually acts, and the kind of like other, like baby talking and whatnot that goes on, kind of to a degree, as I've heard some people put it. I didn't mind it. I thought it was fine. I thought it was funny. But I very much enjoyed Venom. I thought it was good. The action was nice. It felt very, although it's not MCU, it felt very in the realm of MCU, just a darker visual and tone in general. But with, the head eating and other just pure violence of Venom. But I thought it was good. I really enjoyed it. So it's a fun time. If you go into it expecting a fun time, it's a fun time.
I have not seen Venom. I started Venom, and I got like 5 minutes in, and then something came up and I had to turn it off, but I have not seen this movie.
Same. I've always been semi-interested in watching them. just haven't ever gone out of my way to like watch them. Same thing like Deadpool. I had never like gone out of my way, but I was on a flight to Colorado, and I was like, oh, scrolling through and saw
flights are amazing for watching movies that you have no intention of watching because you can't leave the airplane.
There's nothing else to do.
That's how I watched Blade Runner 2049, and I had seen the original Blade Runner and was just like, and I was like, all right, I'm on a flight. It's a 3-hour flight. This movie will take it up. And holy crap, I love that movie. But yeah, gotta love a flight.
Yep. So maybe one day, but yeah.
Maybe one day. Venom streaming party.
I definitely
watch Venom.
I definitely had Godzilla. A lot of interest going into it because Venom is one of my favorite Marvel characters alongside Deadpool, Spider-Man, and Cap. So I definitely wanted to watch it. I just never got around to it when it came out. So then I got around to it yesterday, and we'll get to what else I watched yesterday. Somewhat. Well, it'll be a while, but we'll get to it.
All right, Nick, what's your number 8? What's your number 8?
My number 8 is Nomad Land.
Oh, I have not. Actually, I don't even think I've heard of this movie.
Yeah, I had no idea what this is. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, so Nomad Land, it follows a character who, she lives in a small town. It's around the Great Recession, and her husband passes away. And basically the town kind of fizzles away. Businesses start leaving and closing down. She's working at like a what do you call gypsum or drywall factory, and so she ends up going and living as a nomad, like a modern day nomad living out of a van. And there's this program that Amazon does that they have these like nomadic people go during seasonal, like high times. They go to specific different distribution centers and work there as seasonal workers. And they go stay at like campgrounds and things like that. And so these kind of group of people kind of travel all in the same sort of circles on the road, working odd jobs here and there. So it kind of follows her in this journey of kind of grief and exploring what is this new life now that her old life has kind of gone away. And what's interesting about this film is that they actually film it with people who live as nomads. So she's an actress, and then some other people, some of them more well known, like one of the guys who like runs this kind of community, nomad community. It does this like gathering in Arizona. He's like a YouTuber that kind of he does his, I think he's like Wild Bill or something like that. And so he's on there. But some other people are just kind of like random nomads that they got to act in this film as kind of portrayals of themselves. And so it's kind of this sort of very hybrid, loose kind of almost documentary, but it's all fictional. It kind of sits in that middle of the area. So it's a very slow film. It's one of those films where it's like, it feels, what's that one studio A24 or something like that, like a lot of their films,
like the indie films and stuff,
where you feel like you watch and then you get to the end and you're like, what the heck did I just watch? Like that's the ending, like that's it. A little bit in the same way, like it just kind of feels like a snippet of someone's life that you get to see, and there's not like a neat and tidy beginning and ending. But I thought it was just a fascinating film, and something cool to watch. So yeah,
that sounds very unique. I'd be willing to check that out.
Yeah, it's on Hulu.
Hulu, awesome. Good to know. That sounds really interesting. I always like something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this until you sent me the list. I was like, I don't know what this is, but all right.
And that's very much what it is. Like it feels like a view into like this other world that I had no clue like really existed. This kind of group of nomadic people in the United States, that kind of live out west and kind of travel around.
You don't really think about anyone living like that in the United States, at least. Like you think in other countries, maybe, but
that is. But you think of like Instagram influencers that go and live in their van, you know. But this is like just like average people that do it because that's like their life.
That's what they do. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
All right, I will go ahead and move on with my number 8. Which is the second part of Netflix's horror trilogy, Fear Street Part 2, 1978. So, Fear Street is a pretty unique set of horror films. They originally were to be released in theaters, but due to distribution falling through, Netflix picked them up. They are based on R.L. Stine's second set of horror novels that he wrote. So, R.L. Stine wrote Goosebumps. Fear Street was kind of his like slightly older like horror series, so more young adult. Older young adult. Yeah. I did not either until these movies came out. And basically the plot of these movies is there's of the 3 films, the first film takes place in the 90s, this one takes place in like the late 70s, early 80s, and then the last one takes place in the 1600s. And it follows 2 students who are in love with each other, Dina and Sam, who have a closeted relationship together. And they end up accidentally like disturbing the ghost of a witch named Sarah Fear that supposedly has plagued their town of Shadyside with a curse. And as they kind of begin working through this mystery while avoiding masked killers that have come back from the dead to hunt them down, they slowly begin to uncover the truth behind Shadyside and their neighboring town, Sunnyvale, where everything always is positive and happy and nothing bad ever happens there. So obviously this is part 2. This film is a giant homage to 80s slashers. So if the first film, which takes place in the 90s, is more of an homage to like Scream and other 90s horror films, this one is Friday the 13th, and it's surprisingly really, really well made and really well done. The whole trilogy really is. The first film's a little shaky, but the second 2 are really good. I probably would say I like the third one a little more, but this one does so good with its homages to like late 70s, early 80s horror that it's like a crowd pleaser kind of movie. I can't remember her name. It's this girl on the cover here. She's in Stranger Things. She's like the main girl in the 1978, and basically her older sister's boyfriend gets like cursed by the witch Sarah Fear, and he goes on this mass killing spree around the camp. And it's really, really good. If you like horror movies, if you like slashers specifically, you'll probably really like this trilogy, because the first film is very slasher oriented too. The third one's different because it's more like The Witch, where you've got that like 1600s like early colonial America kind of horror related stuff. So highly recommend it. Check it out. It was good. I assume no one else has seen this one either.
Everything I know about this came from Dead Meat, so
yep.
The Dead Meat kill counts, which I recommend
Dead
Meat. He's really cool.
James A. Janice.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's not doing any kill counts currently.
He just got married. He's Nick, so you know he's a horror movie YouTuber, and he does these things called kill counts, where he goes through a movie and he counts all the kills. Yep. He like gives a synopsis of the movie. He counts the kills. He'll throw in like behind the scenes facts and stuff. Yeah. And really interesting. Actually, cool. in the new Scream movie, he and his wife just had a cameo in that film.
That's cool.
Really?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He's cool. Like the.
I know he's been in like a bunch of stuff
this,
as well.
He's like the horror YouTuber right now. Like when people, I've seen him. He's been invited to like when Dr. Sleep came out, he got invited to like go to the hotel that like served as the outside for the Overlook Hotel. He got to be in Scream. He got to do stuff like with Halloween Kills. He's like everywhere right now.
There's that like indie studio, I don't remember their name, that has like all the creature monsters or whatever, and he's one of the characters in one of their like short TV series.
I didn't know that.
He's like one of the main characters, pretty much one of like the quote unquote bad guys, but
nice.
Because the villain or the monster was like judged him and was like, no, you're fine. He didn't die, and he kept going. And the whole time he did a kill count, and he was like, and this handsome guy right here. He's a cool guy though.
Yeah, he's fun. His channel's fun.
He's really cool.
You know what else is fun? These Fear Street movies. You should watch them.
There you go. Another good plug.
Another good
there
plug.
You go. Yeah, plugging all these things that no one pays.
Yep. Exactly. Pay us, Netflix.
Oh, I wish. Get that Netflix.
Don't we all? All right, Brendan. What's your honorable mention?
My
number
honorable
3?
mention number 4. My third honorable mention, which is my number 7, Spider-Man: Homecoming. I watched the entire MCU Spider-Man trilogy basically in the same day. I watched Homecoming and Far From Home on the same day, and then the next day went and saw No Way Home, which I loved. All 3 of them. They're all great. And
I'm sorry, Brendan. That poster is so bad.
It's talk to IMDb on that one. So bad. It's really I know.
Made this poster.
It's real cluttered. Thank you IMDb for all of these artworks, but this one's rough.
Yeah, this was bad. Whoever
it's very cluttered.
Disney, you gotta get your shit together. This was bad.
Regardless,
sure they have by then, but
aside from how kind of awkward the poster is, the movie itself is very good. The entire Spider-Man trilogy from the MCU is very good, and I know I feel this way. I don't know if other people do, but pretty much from like Avengers onward, every MCU movie is just kind of like baseline 7 or 8 out of 10, and it's just a matter of if it's just that much better, like Shang-Chi, as people are calling it. But it's very rare for an MCU movie to just be bad. Like they're always just good, well-made movies, and it's just a matter of if you like it or not. And Homecoming felt very, very much that way. It was very good. Felt kind of actually like origin stories, like the Iron Man and Captain America movies from before Avengers, to me. Kind of thinking back on it, it felt very much like that. But it's a good movie. It's, in my opinion, the worst of the 3 MCU Spider-Mans, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's very good. It's very, very good time.
What's funny is this is my favorite of the MCU Spider-Mans.
Wow.
I personally think they got better as they went, but that's me.
I think it's what everyone. They're all a little different. I think they all
appeal to different
elements of the character. I think what made this movie for me more than the other 2 is, one, I like kind of just the down-home nature of him
very
in
New
this
York
film.
nature of
He
it,
is very like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and Michael Keaton is Vulture. That reveal and the end of that
so
film,
good.
or like the 2/3 mark of that film, where it's like the girl he's dating and he's the dad, and when they just look at each other and they realize that. I saw this opening Thursday night. Nick, were you there with us when we saw this? Or were you in Pennsylvania?
I probably Pennsylvania still.
Okay. I remember the whole theater just let out an audible gasp when he turned around and it was Michael Keaton in the car. And it's got to be, in my opinion, one of the greatest superhero movie twists I've ever seen in a superhero movie.
No,
and it's so small and it's so minor, but it's so good.
It's a great movie.
I also really liked, not to take up all your time, Brad, I also really liked the villain's motivation in this film. Like, the whole idea is like big corporate America has come in and like screwed the little guy.
Tony Stark.
I'm going to screw corporate America, or like Tony Stark, basically.
Yeah, the Stark Foundation.
It's such an awesome concept to have a villain that's like not really evil. He's just down on his luck. He's hurting, so he's hurting someone else back. And I think a lot of people can agree in the Marvel films, a lot of their villains are like, I'm going to end the world, or I'm going to do something incredibly evil because I'm the bad guy. And Vulture was just... He was like literally the whole movie, I'm like, I kind of can get on board with you, dude. The 2016, you've seen this movie already.
No. I'm setting up for Nick's 7, and I accidentally pasted it into my thing.
A little flash.
So you got a little sneak peek at Nick's number 7. Well,
Nick, how do you feel about Homecoming? Where do you put it between the 3 MCU Spider-Mans?
I probably my number 2 out of I love it. He seems I love their twist on Vulture.
Yeah, Vulture,
and that he seems like just that classic like overprotective dad of someone who's just recently dating his daughter. You don't really think anything of it, and even the final scene, just like the fire on the beach, and just like that whole. It is one of my favorite kind of like one-on-one final like battles between like superhero and villain, in the end. And I really agree with the because even like you just think about like they try to do that a little bit with Thanos, and Thanos. I always have like the biggest issue that I ever had was him like his big like sacrifice was that he was gonna sacrifice his daughter in the end. It always felt so forced to me and so fake because even like his whole like he's trying to save the world by getting rid of half of the population because he knows
saving the world by killing it.
Yeah. It just is one of those things where you're just like, all right, like it. I understand like there's got to be some justification why he's doing like the big great evil that he is, and but out of any villain that we've seen, like a little bit, I'm like I'm on his side. I get it, man. And because that's the whole thing about Tony Stark. Really, is like there is a lot to like not like about this guy, but yet he like finds himself to be likable. In the end, more and more as he goes along, and he never like attributes himself to be this like great, like good human, and but so yeah, I think it was such a good tense film, as you'll see in some of my other films that I pick on my list. I find myself more in the thriller rather than the horror of like tense, situations. I like the tense, but not getting kind of the resolution, always feeling kind of like on edge. And I think out of any like Marvel film that gets that, I think this one definitely does that. Yeah.
I will also say, after the big fight with Vulture, how Peter goes in and picks him up and drags him out to make sure he's saved. That is the biggest setup for that character in the MCU I have ever seen. That he's just a good guy that doesn't want to hurt people.
Yep, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Is it the end credit sequence or like the mid credit sequence when Vulture's in jail and they're like, you can tell us who Spider-Man is, and he's just like, nope. I don't know, and just why? Like I even like that is for a villain moment. It's just like he respects him enough where he's like, I'm not gonna devolve that to you. Like you don't need to know that kind of thing. So another thing I like.
It's not Vulture's thing. That's not what he's about.
Yeah, he's not really evil. I mean, he's doing bad things, but he's not a bad person. It's a unique take on a villain. I'd say the only other villain from the MCU that I really thought was like phenomenal. I think Thanos is pretty good, but I thought Killmonger from Black Panther was pretty good too. Like very good. I've not seen that yet. Black Panther is my favorite MCU film.
It is unfortunate they did not have enough time to finish the
fight, it really is.
It seems like it's a good movie outside of that one small blunder with the VFX at the end, which is probably not the artist's fault. It's probably a time issue, but it's rough.
Yeah, no offense to these films, but because I heard a similar complaint with Shang-Chi that you have all these amazing like fight choreography, and in the final like third act fight is a big CGI fest, and people were like, keep doing the cool martial arts fights. That way we love. And Black Panther kind of turned into that too at the end. Like you had all these awesome moments at the end. It's two guys in identical looking black suits like punching each other in pitch blackness, and it's like, I can't really see what's happening right now.
It's like a PS2 game, and it's rough.
So our Black Panther has like the gold on him, and he's got purple. Like what? Or silver and gold. I don't remember. It's been a minute.
I think Killmonger's like gold. It's like a gold or like a bronze.
Okay.
It's like kind of like muddy yellow.
Anything else for you on this one, Brendan? We kind of stole your thunder on this one.
No, it's fine. I mean, I think it's just all around a solid movie. I mean, I feel like almost all MCU movies are just solid movies from the beginning.
There's very few I think I've seen where I've been like, nah.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, what's your number 7?
My number 7.
I know what it is because Brendan.
We all know my number 7.
This is actually one I forgot I saw too, so I also have one
I've not seen
forgot I saw.
But it's one that I definitely know I would like.
So it came out at Christmas in 2020, but I didn't see it until 2021, the very beginning of the year.
We're right at the edge.
So, so guy dies at very beginning of film, and which is interesting for a Disney movie. Your main character is dead, and just after getting his kind of big break in music, mild-mannered middle school band teacher, and who just loves music and is teaching these kids jazz. And so then he ends up discovering kind of this soul in the afterlife that no matter how great of a mentor this soul has received, can not find its way to have some sort of identity or purpose to live life on Earth yet, and before it can make its way from being some unidentified soul to being one that lives on Earth. And so he ends up getting in sort of making like a deal with the devil type thing, but not quite. Kind of escapes going into the afterlife, and makes his way into kind of conning himself into being the mentor for this soul. So very interesting concept, very different kind of feel for a Pixar film. But I love music kind of themed films, and this one, especially jazz, this one hits the spot for me on that one. I thought is funny. The like afterlife. There's this character from one of what's his face? The New Zealand director Taika Waititi.
Yeah, Taika Waititi.
There's in one of his first films, The Hunt for the Wilder People, the like foster care lady who's in charge of it, she does the voice for one of the like afterlife kind of like architect type people, and she's like constantly trying to find this guy to like bring him back and get him to like actually die for real, and it's just the funniest thing ever, and I really love her character. And so I think it's just a real good feel-good story, kind of learning a little bit about passions, difference between like your passion in life and kind of like the purpose of your life, and when those things get out of whack, when someone is just so focused on their passions that they forget about the rest of the world and the reason for wanting to do things. And so a lot of like finding balance in life between those things and really getting to enjoy all that life offers. So it was a neat film, like very kind of philosophical for a Pixar film as well, and so I thought it was a neat take, and one that kind of flipped under the radar for a long. It was kind of like a holiday film that was just kind of a nice thing to watch around the holidays, and then it kind of faded into existence. But I think it's one of the better Pixar films that I've ever watched. So
yeah, I agree there, because if I remember right, Onward also came out in 2020, which was their like fantasy D&D kind of like Pixar film, which you think I would have preferred much more. And I thought Soul was leaps and bounds better than Onward. It reminds me a lot of Coco, which is one of my second favorite Pixar film, but where Coco obviously is very steeped in like that like Mexican like Day of the Dead culture. This is not, and it's a more, I don't call it cultureless because that's the wrong way to say it, but it's like a different take or a different look on like the afterlife, and it is very like deep, and there's a lot of like moments, like sad moments and stuff in the film that like make you think and about like what your purpose is and stuff like that. So it's interesting they came out with two films about death, and they focused on two completely different elements about it, basically.
Yeah.
Brennan, have you seen Soul?
Nope. I forgot about it.
Nick, you're right though. It's one of those films that like came out and it was like Soul, and then like a week later, no one cared anymore.
Yeah.
And I feel bad because it's so good, and it's just a shame it kind of got just thrown into like, because of COVID, it got thrown into the streaming service dumpster bin. Yeah. Of all the other hundreds of things. Like I want to say that Mandalorian was like airing its final second, like the finale of its second season around this time, and you had the whole thing with Luke Skywalker coming back and stuff. And I feel like a lot of that like Disney Plus traffic and noise drowned this movie out, unfortunately.
Yep.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, for being a Pixar film, which is usually kind of a big event in theaters, it was kind of, for the first time, having one of those just kind of, it felt a little bit like Luca. Like, Raya got, a lot more hype, I think, than other ones, but I think same thing, Luca, popped up on streaming stuff and all those kind of things, and I think people just kind of watch it and then, and leave it. I think Soul. Yeah, and I think Soul is kind of in that. It almost feels like this straight to DVD type of, where you're like, people just watch it just because it's there and they don't have anything else to watch. But I think it ranks higher on Pixar films if I was to rank all of them. So
it is a good one. If you haven't seen it, Nick recommends it. I recommend it. Brendan hasn't seen it, but he also recommends it.
I recommend it. It seems like it's a great movie. I just never got around to it.
It is a good movie.
Kind of forgot it was even a thing.
All right, well, moving on. Are you all good, Nick?
Yeah, all good.
Oh. Moving on to my number 7, which is a very similar story to your number 7, which is an animated movie that was dumped onto streaming services that a large number of people forgot about, and including me, because I just recently saw it, is The Mitchells vs. the Machines, which I know Nick has seen because we watched it in Tennessee together.
Yes.
And so this film follows Katie Mitchell, who's like a aspiring filmmaker, who, she kind of lives in a very dysfunctional family. She's got her dinosaur-obsessed younger brother, her mother that is like trying to be like the best super mom she can be and failing, and then her like technologically challenged father who's like very outdoorsy. And basically they go on a road trip to take her to college, and essentially the Facebook of the world makes like a new like personal robot assistant that gains sentience and tries to like take over all the people, and realizes that they're tired of being yelled at for being bad robots and they want to launch everyone to space. So the Mitchells become the last remaining humans that aren't captured by these robots, and they have to do everything in their power to stop them. And this movie is hilarious. It's well animated, surprisingly well animated. Like, I think who did this? Sony did this. So Sony also did Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, this is the Spider-Verse and Lego Movie team.
Yeah, if you look at the exact team, that tells you everything that you need to know about this movie.
People can't do any wrong in animation right now. Lego Movie was
They're great.
Animation marvel. Into the Spider-Verse is one of the best animated films I've seen in my life, if not the best animated film I've ever seen. And this is amazing too. For me too, this movie is kind of different, I feel like, from other animated films. I feel like there are a lot of other animated movies that still target like the generations before, like the millennial generation, and this movie feels like one of the first films that's like addresses and realizes that like millennials are parents, and that like our kids are the kids that eventually we'll have, because none of us have kids in this group. They, like kind of the stuff that we go through and have dealt with and like we've been surrounded with. So it feels almost, I'm gonna say postmodern, which is probably the wrong way to describe it. It feels different in its writing. And again, it kind of stacks up with like the Lego Movie and Into the Spider-Verse, where there's something different about the writing in these movies, where it's not Disney, it's not Pixar. Sony Animation has their own brand here, and I think they're doing a really good job of targeting our generation and lower in terms of like the content that they're producing. I mean, there's so many funny moments in this movie. For those of you that haven't seen it, there's a giant like sentient Furby that comes to life, and it's just absolutely like hilarious when it happens.
Yes.
Like, I was crying. I was laughing so hard when that happened. There were multiple moments in this movie I was crying. I was laughing so hard. Yeah.
The movie is just so fast-paced with all of its jokes and little things. Yeah, what I love about the animation, it feels like a scrapbook of someone's family trip, like to college. Like all the things that kind of get like slapped on the screen, like over the like, kind of 3D animation. Then you get these like illustrated, pictures and all sorts of different things. Like it just is this kind of like just funny one after another, like one-liner and little hint there, and it very much like pulls that kind of transitional. I think, yeah, like what you're saying, it is this kind of transition between millennials and in Gen Z, like it hits the right in the middle spot where you get giant Furbies that we would know, that kids probably. I mean, Furbies aren't as popular as they were, when we were kids, and but you get some of those kind of things, and and the social media era, and trying to be like a movie filmmaker, kind of using social media and influencer type of culture. I think it's
the main girl like gets into college because she makes YouTube movies and uses it as like her submission to get into film school, basically.
Yeah. So it's just so cool. Such a neat concept and really well done. Hilarious. And
I also love the message of this movie. Because it's very much about like generations coming together and like sorting out their differences. In our society and that day and age, it's always, oh, you kids don't know anything, you're all lazy and terrible, or it's the okay boomer kind of attitude. And this movie like very directly addresses that. And in the end, it's just like, but we can come together and as a family and have these moments as a family that mean stuff to us and help us sort through our differences and whatnot. And you don't see that a lot anymore. Like it's very much like hostile between the generations, I feel like. So that was nice to see. So yeah, Mitchells vs. the Machines. It's on Netflix. So if you have Netflix, just watch it.
Good stuff.
All right, Brendan, what's your last honorable mention that didn't
last honorable mention?
Then we get to his real list.
To my real top five.
Real top five.
I don't watch a lot of movies that often.
Real fake top five.
Far From Home! Because, as I said, I watched both Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home literally the day before I saw
Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah, No Way Home.
A lot of Spider-Man on this list.
Yeah, I mean, I watched all 3 Spider-Men in the same year, so here we are.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson.
All his glory.
Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, which is strangely like the best casting choice that has ever happened in Marvel, and I don't know how that happened. But
for the way they did Mysterio.
Yeah, for the way they did Mysterio, Jake Gyllenhaal did it perfectly. I loved it. It was great.
Jake Gyllenhaal, same for me. I think of this whole movie, which I think this movie's just okay.
I love it.
Mysterio is very well done. His whole plot is completely like absurd. Like the way they do it is completely like nonsensical, absurd, and I love it. I love just how over the top it is, and it's entertaining.
It just fits in his character so well, though. But the big thing for me with this movie that puts it above Homecoming is the big illusion sequence, and then the spider sense sequence not long after, where the whole illusion sequence is just I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff, where it's just like constant weird stuff's happening and you don't really know what's going on, and neither does the character, and it's just visual, and blending perfectly together. Like every time it cuts, he's in a new spider suit. Every time it cuts, there's a new location going on. It just transitions into new things very cleanly, very quickly, and very well. And then the spider sense, or the Peter Tingle scene, if you will.
Peter Tingles.
The Peter Tingle. Yeah, that scene too was just, when I saw that, I was like, man, this is a great movie. I love this. The visual style of it is very, very good. There's a lot of fun little small details. If you actually pay attention to like the first like half of the movie, not a lot of people noticed it, but I mean people noticed it because YouTube is a thing, and that's like everything people do is they break down the movie and go, here's all the things you missed. Very early on when they're fighting like the big water elemental, Spider-Man gets hit and blasted on like a balcony or whatever, but he's not wet, the balcony's not wet, nothing around him is wet, despite the fact that it's a massive water elemental throwing massive amounts of water everywhere. And it kind of like hints that maybe it's not really water, maybe it's an illusion, and you find out it is an illusion. That's like the whole plot, is Mysterio's kind of a dick and wants revenge on Tony Stark by stealing stuff from Peter because he wants to take down the world and become the world's greatest superhero by faking it until he makes it.
Hey.
Very good movie. I loved it.
Sometimes that's what it takes.
Well, just fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I don't have much to say about this one, unfortunately. Nick, how do you feel?
I very much enjoyed it. I thought it was really good.
I actually don't remember too much about the details of the film. Most of it, I remember the ending and kind of setting up the whole, Peter Parker's reveal. Like that's a big Spider-Man story. Is him hiding his identity? Really, out of any Marvel superhero, that's kind of like a big Peter Parker, kind of thing. And when his identity is revealed, which is kind of interesting because technically in the Civil War timeline,
he has to reveal it because he signs the contract.
With Tony Stark, and that was like when the big reveal. So it was kind of interesting that after the Civil War stuff happened, and they didn't do that, which I mean it makes sense. It wouldn't have fit kind of that film.
It doesn't really fit that film to do that stuff, yeah.
But it's interesting that they do that, setting up for the third film, which I think out of any, it's kind of interesting what they did with Spider-Man. I was just thinking about this today, and but that the third one I feel like really is his origin film, and we kind of get these like two prequels to like the classic Spider-Man storyline, and it's kind of him coming into, which it really all has been, that Tony Stark is kind of his mentor into becoming a superhero, and really everybody looks at him as like the young one out of everybody.
The new Tony Stark.
He's not really like an Avenger, like everyone else is. And he's kind of, the young guy that kind of, helps out here and there. And so it's kind of interesting that this kind of more propels him into that area for the third film. So
I like Jake Gyllenhaal.
Jake Gyllenhaal did a very good job.
He did.
I don't want people to think I didn't like this movie. I just thought it was okay. Of the three Spider-Man movies, it's my least favorite of the three. So that'll tell you where No Way Home is.
It's my second favorite of the three.
Like you said, Brendan, for you,
I think they got better and better as they went
on.
And I'll touch on that later.
It's more fresh for you than it is.
It is much more fresh for me too, though. Yeah, because
Sam and I watched it before No Way Home, and because she'd never seen it at all, and so that was just November, December.
Yeah, No Way Home was like November, December.
Okay, so it wasn't that long
very
ago
recently.
For me.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters, and that was it. So
yeah,
I haven't seen it since.
I did not see that one in theaters. I just got it on Blu-ray and watched it.
Yeah, I watched. I mean, watching this right after Homecoming is a little weird. It's very jarring because it's a 5-year time skip, and there's like 6 Marvel movies between them. But
yeah,
I kind of had myself mentally prepared for that going into it, kind of knowing that this takes place after, and I know this is where I am in the timeline.
Yeah, you almost, I hate to say it,
you really can't watch them back to back.
Yeah, you could almost ignore Homecoming and just watch this
Far From
one
Home straight into No Way Home.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're
directly
a lot more connected than Homecoming is to be.
Yeah, because they go right after
one another. Immediately after Far From Home. But yeah, no, great movie. I enjoyed it. Very good.
All right, Nick, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is A Quiet Place Part 2.
Oh, I did not see Part 2. I loved Part 1 though.
I love A Quiet Place and its world that John Krasinski is kind of forming. What I love about these films and kind of the thriller genre that I really love is they're like playing with sound. And really, I mean, like sound is a big part of movies and the experience and those kind of things. But when you really focus on that sense and as a part of creating like the thrill, the kind of the tenseness of not just music, because it really doesn't have much music, if any at all. Really, it's just the sound of the environment and of themselves. And not a lot of dialogue, kind of feeling a little bit like WALL-E, trying to use more visual cues and that kind of storytelling rather than actual dialogue itself. I think it's such a unique film, and the world is interesting to me. It's very slow in the storyline. Like you really still don't know too much about the main kind of monsters in the world, how they got there, why they're there. Any of those kind of things. If it's a farther branching story, it really focuses more mainly just on this one family kind of surviving this post-apocalyptic world. The very beginning of this film is a great sequence, one of the best kind of opening sequences in a film I've seen in a long time. It's just kind of a mild-mannered day. They're like, their son is playing at a, like a pee-wee baseball game, and they live in this small kind of quaint town. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the game, you see this meteor come down and kind of start hurtling towards the world, and nobody really knows like what the heck this is or what's going really on. So people are asking questions, and you get hints because you've seen the first movie. So like a radio's not really working, and all sorts of different. The dog is kind of barking and starting to hear rumblings around that people wouldn't hear, and then all of a sudden kind of all hell breaks loose, and that's like day one, and then you get to see 400 and some odd days beyond then is when the story picks back up right after the first film, and kind of their survival. And so just such a great film. Even at the very beginning, you can see it in the poster too. Like, that's such a great scene at the very beginning, is they live on this home, and they've done everything they can based on what they've learned to kind of counteract, and they create these like sand paths everywhere, and basically it's gotten to the end of the path that they've created, and they have to go beyond there since their home is kind of destroyed and no longer safe. And so they have to kind of trust the outside world, other people, because all they've been able to do is trust their insular family on how to handle the situation. And so now they have to trust other people, which in the small town, basically everybody that lives there, and people are still kind of surrounding. So it's interesting to see the effect that other families and other people have had based on it. And so great film. Really, really loved it. So
yeah, I have not seen part 2, but I did see part 1, and I thought it was phenomenal. It's different for a horror movie. As someone who watches a lot of horror movies, there's a lot of things you take for granted, and there's a lot of things that horror movies use to put you on edge, and sound is one of those things. But you don't know how much more you can be put on edge when there's no sound. And if you want to make a tense scene, you just remove all noise from it that you can, and you just let it play out. Where any little creak, any cough, any noise at all could set these monsters off, and they could immediately kill you. And I've heard good things about the second film. And this is one of those films, too, where, like, when you heard they were coming out with a second movie, you were like, that's gonna suck. Like, this didn't need a sequel. And I heard the second one's as good as the first one.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, it's just really more of the first one. And and more isn't a bad thing. Like, it's not like, oh, it did, some like, crazy new things. It really took it in a new direction. It really is, because it's such a slow drift into the world, like they're not really doing big exposition dumps as to like why everything is it. You really are just kind of following their experience of this world. And so more is actually really good because you just get kind of these little droplets of the world around them. And so I think John Krasinski probably is going to do much more with that world. It just seems like there's so much more to explore than just what they've done so far. So
I think they're making a TV show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think they're doing a TV show spinoff as their next idea.
I think it would be great as a TV series. I think you could really get to flesh out more of that world and different characters. So
have you seen A Quiet Place, Brendan? Nope. Either 1 or 2?
The most information I have on it is I think there have been kill counts on them.
There has been.
And
probably because there's an insane amount.
Yeah, and I've watched most, if not all, of the kill counts, Dead Meat. So I don't particularly like watching horror movies very much because I don't like getting
all the time.
Not really. I mean, like old, like kind of. Like the old 80s slashers that are like super cheesy and not actually scary, I don't mind. But
yeah,
more recent stuff that's like actually trying to be scary, I don't like because I don't like getting scared by it. So Dead Meat is a good way for me to kind of get an idea of what's going on in the movie, get some fun background on it, and have it, and kind of still somewhat enjoy it in a way that doesn't require me to get scared by it.
I will say part 2 is less horror than I think the first one. The first one is much more horror. This one feels much more action end of Thriller. There are a lot of those very tense, still playing with a lot of the sound stuff. They seem, because one of the characters is deaf, that like there's a lot of, and it's always interesting. It has to do a lot of times with touch. Like it'll go from her point of view, and there's no sound whatsoever. And then as soon as someone touches her, it goes to their like sound. And so that's always like super interesting, all of the transitions between this. But this one, you're seeing the like monsters from more far away, and it's more kind of the chaos that they create rather than like the first one is very intense. Like it's in the house, it's right there, you know, in your face, and it's very like kind of intimate, that kind of horror-ish. This is more, I think, a lot more action based, a lot less jump scares and those kind of things that you would see in a classic horror
Which
film.
one do you prefer, Nick, the first or the second one?
I actually think the second one. Okay. I think the second one.
Check it out.
Yeah. Out of the two of them, one, you get to see a little bit more of the world. Like I said, that first sequence is really, really good. And I think there's much more. That was just focused on one family. This one, I like the idea of like, what can this family do for the rest of the world? You know, like that there's this kind of, it makes it much more of an epic story rather than just a survival story, that it's kind of like what now this family kind of has their experience, what they can do to like help other people. So that interaction with other people is pretty cool.
Very cool. All right, I guess I will move on with my number 6, which is going to be ironic because Nick brought it up that I introduced him to this franchise. No Time to Die, Daniel Craig's last outing as Mr. Bond. So No Time to Die follows James Bond as he attempts to save the world from another megalomaniac that believes that he is the right person to end it, essentially. That's really dumbing this movie down a lot. So No Time to Die is a movie I wasn't super excited for. So in terms of Daniel Craig's tenure, I love Casino Royale. Quantum of Solace is meh. I love Skyfall. I think Spectre is a giant heaping pile of burning dog shit. And then No Time to Die came out, and I'm like, this movie's been delayed like 3 times. Daniel Craig said after Spectre he wanted to kill himself, then be Bond again. I'm like, this is gonna suck. This movie, if it had a slightly tighter script and had a few, I think, moments changed or clarified to make things work a little bit better, especially with the villain, I think this might have been Daniel Craig's best Bond film. This is his best acted Bond film. This movie actually makes Spectre a better movie. It turns it from a flaming pile of dog shit to a serviceably okay James Bond film because they're so linked together. It's James Bond at his most emotional. I don't think you've really seen Bond this emotional as a character since like Casino Royale or On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is also interesting because this movie makes a zillion call-outs to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is the 6th James Bond film, I think. Only one that stars George Lazenby is James Bond. Check it out. It's one of my favorites. But yeah, this film it's so good. It kind of plays on this idea, which Skyfall also did, but this movie plays on it a little more, that James Bond is like done and washed up. Like he's retired from MI6 when this film starts, and he kind of is re-entered into the fold after he kind of learned some stuff and some events happen that I won't spoil too much of. And kind of MI6 is like, you retired, F off. Like there's someone else has your 007 like tag, like get out of here. And so he kind of forces his way in, and it's sort of this like old guard exchanging like with the new guard, and it's so good. There's a lot of deep emotional connections with the Bond girl in this film, who's the same Bond girl from Spectre, which she's like a scientist whose dad was like a Spectre agent. And they actually have like a pretty good romantic relationship throughout the movie. I don't want to give too much away. And then the ending of this film, which Nick and Brennan, I'm assuming you haven't seen this film.
Nope.
I do not. I want to talk about this ending, but I don't want to spoil this ending. It is a lasting ending impact for Daniel Craig's James Bond tenure, and it's phenomenal. It's emotional. It's heartfelt. like I said, if I think they tightened some stuff up related to the villain. The main villain is this guy named Safin, and his whole plot is basically Spectre killed my family, so I've created nanomachines or stolen these nanomachines that can like sync up to your DNA and kill you, and I'm going to use them to destroy the world because I can, I guess. And a lot of that is not particularly fantastic, but everything else about this James Bond movie is great. This is another one I don't own yet, and I don't know why, but will be, like Corella, will be shortly added to my collection. He's good.
Only James Bond I have seen is Skyfall.
Skyfall is so good. If I were to rank if I were to rank Craig's like films, it would probably be Casino and Skyfall are tough because I like both of them so much. I'd probably do Skyfall, Casino Royale, No Time to Die, Quantum of Solace, and then Spectre. But Casino to No Time to Die, they exist in their own like pool of like, these are really good. They're kind of interchangeable in certain ways depending on what you're looking for, where the other two are just, you know, off of their own little dog shit island with like Octopussy and some of those other terrible James Bond films that I despise so much. I could tune in next week for, even though we said we're not meeting next week, for Ethan rants about every James Bond film and gives his opinions about every single one of them and why certain ones are good and certain ones suck.
That would be great.
Controversial opinions will ensue.
Yes.
So yeah, that's all I have to say about this one. I'm trying to think if there's anything else big to say. Some great action scenes. The opening of the cold opening before you get the song, like in the funky credit sequence. He has like an bullet armored car. So they're just like blasting his Aston Martin with like machine guns, and like it's not just bullet holes, but not like actually getting into the car. He activates this thing and like does this like drift maneuver, and he just like machine gun down a whole bunch of guys. It's pretty badass. The only thing I will say is, and this seems to be a problem for all James Bond actors, they get to the end of their James Bond tenure and they're like old as hell. And like Craig came in, I think in his like mid-30s, and when he did Casino, so he, I think, was, you know, about the age Connery was when he did James Bond. And in this movie, I think Connery's like in his 50s, and like he doesn't look bad, but he doesn't look like he could be doing some of the stuff he should be doing. Like there's a scene at the beginning where like a grenade goes off and he gets launched like halfway across this thing, and he just gets up, and I'm like, dude, you're like all your organs would just be scrambled. You're not
half your bones are broken. You lost 3 ribs in that.
And again, I don't know how old his co-star is, but I think she's like in her 30s. So like at the end of Roger Moore's tenure, when he was like almost 60 and his co-star was like 22, it's like, she's like, you're old enough to be my dad. And it's just like, ugh.
Nice.
But, you know, he's supposed to be suave, sexy James Bond. He's British.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I love this movie. It was phenomenal. All right, Brendan.
Well,
hit us with your real number 5.
My real top 5 list of the movies I've seen.
I'm gonna laugh if someone came in like in the middle of us talking about like Spider-Man: Homecoming, and they were just like,
understand.
"This isn't 2021 movies. What the hell?"
As I said, I didn't watch a lot of movies over the past year, but my number 5 is one of the only 5 movies that released in the last year that I have actually seen, which is Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yes. Actual first crossover.
Yes, which is great. I mean, I kind of talked about it a little bit already. I think it's a good movie, but it's Godzilla. Human plot is always the worst part, and I went into it going, I'm gonna watch a big lizard and a big monkey punch each other for 2 hours. And I walked out going, I watched a big lizard and a big monkey punch each other for 2 hours, and I am satisfied.
Yep.
That's all that matters.
All it needed to be.
That's all. If you go in there expecting highbrow, Oscar-winning performances, I am so sorry for you. This is not the right movie. Please do not watch that.
I thought Kong gave a pretty Oscar-winning performance. I think he was the most emotional character in the entire movie.
Some of the behind-the-scenes stuff is actually really interesting with a lot of the CG, because you know, there's the big fight scene on the boat with Kong.
I will say that was,
which is really well done. It's such a great idea to have Kong be in an arena that Godzilla is not good at fighting in, or sorry, that Kong's not good at fighting, and Godzilla's just like, this is what I do, and it did a really good way of like showing that in this scenario, he's gonna get beat up real good.
Mm-hmm.
But
I will say, it seems like Godzilla always fights as the away team, never the home team.
Like, he's never on his home turf. He's always on land.
Yeah.
And then
there's only a few Godzilla movies you actually see Godzilla fight in water, but because it was men in suits, they weren't like swimming. He was just in like waist deep in water, just wading around in a giant rubber suit. And one thing I will say, I do appreciate the movie took this route that like there's no physical way like King Kong could hold his own against freaking Godzilla. So they were just like super upfront about that. Like the whole movie, they're like, he's gonna get his ass whooped.
There's no way. We can't let Godzilla touch him. He's gonna murder him the whole time.
Yeah.
And they're like, we gotta protect King Kong. And then they do, and then they don't. But then they kind of do. It was a good time though.
They team up. They team up and fight the real big bad.
It's a good time. It's a fun
humanity.
A fun, wacky movie. I joked before we started that every Godzilla movie is the same, or at least has the same structure of 3 fights. Round 1, one of them gets beat up and then runs away. Round 2, the other one gets beat up and runs away. And round 3, they both have a really close fight, and then humans do something and Godzilla wins. And that's basically what happened in Godzilla vs. Kong as well, because it's... But that's fine. That's what you want. This is what you come into Godzilla for.
Yep.
And I was happy with it. It was a good time. It's not an Oscar winner, and it never will be, and it probably shouldn't be, but it's a fun movie.
I have nothing more to say. This is fun.
We've already talked about it a little bit, but those are my full opinions.
All right.
Good time.
Nick, what's your top 5 then, or your 5th one?
We got another duplicate here.
Right away, another
duplicate round. The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Yes.
Number 5. Just super solid film. Love it. Lots of fun. If you're sitting down as a family, as a group of people, this is a good group watch. Lots of good laughs. We had a good time watching it all together in Tennessee.
This is a fun friends movie to watch. Like, just have a couple drinks, sit back with popcorn, and just have fun with.
Yes. So, cannot recommend it enough. That was a good find, and really, really glad I got to see it. So, definitely something that I've wanted to watch again as well.
Yeah, same. That's now been released on Blu-ray as well, and I'll probably also I have 3 movies to pick up from my list that I don't know. You never know when Netflix will just be like, "This is gone."
True.
Screw you. So, I'm a physical media slave.
That's my number 5.
All right.
Oh, jeez.
My number 5 is also no, it's not a duplicate. I'm sorry. I am breaking the duplicate. But it is Edgar Wright's horror thriller, Last Night in Soho. So this is definitely a movie that flew under people's radar because it came out, I think, the same weekend as Eternals did, and it just got crapped on all over the box office because Eternals was like the first big Marvel movie back in the theaters. Like, huge deal. And it was like, I think this may have came out the weekend before. Or I don't remember if they came out the same weekend or this came out the weekend before, but it was just like the entire time. So this movie follows a girl from England or Britain named Ellie, who wants to be a fashion designer. So it's interesting. I have 2 fashion related movies on my list here. So she goes to this prestigious school where she's kind of bullied because she's a little odd and quirky. So she leaves her dorms and she finds a flat to rent, like the upper room in a flat. And when she goes to bed, she imagines herself as this young woman named Sandy back in the 1960s who wants to be a dancer and a singer, kind of in like this kind of like live the 60s high life. And this is a movie that I thought was going to be a drama with a little bit of mystery elements, and this movie turned out to be straight up friggin' horror because Sandy's life seems perfect and wonderful, and it begins to inspire Ellie, and she begins to design all these outfits based around what she sees in these visions. But very quickly, her life, or she sees Sandy's life turns kind of terrible when the agent that she links up with decides that the only way for her to make a living here is to become a prostitute and do like these voyeur shows and all of this other terrible stuff, and people get murdered, and it kind of becomes a sort of mystery as Ellie is trying to figure out how Sandy was murdered. While she's also being stalked and terrorized by the ghosts of all of these dead guys that slept with Sandy. And they just haunt her every dream and nightmare until they begin to haunt her in actual, like, real life. And her entire life just begins to go down the toilet because of this. Didn't know what to expect from this movie. I was blown away. The cinematography is really well done. It's very creative. There's a lot of excellent moments, like when they transition between like modern day London to like 1960s London in terms of like the costume design, the music choice. Ellie is kind of like I'm not like other girls girl, but she's kind of a deconstruction of that sort of trope in a way, where that kind of stuff comes back to haunt her a bit, and she's a little insufferable at the beginning of the movie because she's just so like, I'm not like everyone else. I'm different and I'm special, and you're just like, shut the hell up. But this movie's great. I will say, this movie and my next 4 minus my number 3, were all marketed terribly. Like, I remember seeing the trailers for this, and like Eric, who's on this stream, he said he wanted to see this, and I remember like telling him, I was like, I saw this movie. You're glad you didn't see it. It's a horror movie. You would have hated it. You would have wanted. You might have left because it's intense. It has some intense stuff in this movie. But yeah, it was good. I highly recommend it if you're looking for a horror thriller with a little bit of a mystery component in there. Can't really go wrong. So yeah, that's my number 5.
I haven't seen it, but Edgar Wright does make some good movies.
Yeah.
So it's made actually my favorite movie, or directed it, which is good old Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim is fantastic.
Oh.
Yep, he's the Scott Pilgrim director.
You can definitely tell the styles too, because there's a lot of use of like fancy colors and like really interesting lighting and stuff in this movie, especially neons and things. All right, Brendan, what's your number 4?
Number 4. I believe I have it set up. Yes, I do. So my number 4 is yet another movie that is one of the movies I saw last year that came out last year, but Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
Mortal Kombat. Actually really good. I really enjoyed this. This was better than the classics. Classic, really bad, campy, like 80s ones.
You tell me Mortal Kombat Annihilation isn't the greatest film ever created?
I'm not gonna lie. It's a fun watch because it's just so stupid.
Oh my gosh, it's so bad. But
no, this is way better. So, yes. The opening to this movie, the cold open with Hanzo Hasashi and Bihan. Oh man, that by itself, if that was released by itself as like a short film, Oscar winner right there. Boom, give me all of the awards. It's so good. I know people aren't the biggest fan of the main character of the movie being a original character for the movie. I'm going to give it a pass for that because that was a studio mandate, and everyone who worked on this movie are fans of Mortal Kombat and really like Mortal Kombat and are just big nerds about it. From my understanding, at least, that's what a lot of them have said, is that they're big Mortal Kombat fans and really like the series. So unfortunate studio meddling, but I think the guy was cool. Interesting power for a Mortal Kombat character to have. I haven't actually seen that ever, I don't think. I don't know if any Mortal Kombat characters in the games have ever had a power like his, which is basically just Black Panther's vibranium suit, how that works, where it like absorbs energy and then he can disperse it. He's cool. It's a very, very cool guy. Unfortunately, no Johnny Cage, but there's teases for a new movie coming, and a Mortal Kombat 2. I don't know if they're gonna make it. I hope they do. I really hope they do.
I know that I think HBO Max paid like 200 or 300 million to like have exclusive streaming rights for this film, and then it got released in theaters and it did well enough. It made, for like a mostly stream-centric movie, it made a crap ton of money, so they will be making this.
Good. I'm glad, because I want to see more of it, because they did a great job. All the fight scenes are amazing. They do an amazing job. All the characters are from Mortal Kombat, minus the original character. that's in here, but some of them are like some super deep cuts too. Like there's some that I didn't recognize, and when I looked it up, I was like, oh, they're from like Mortal Kombat 5 and are like a mini boss from like a side stage that you do like one time ever in the game. Okay, that's cool. Definitely recommend it if you want to see absolutely disgusting, gory martial art combat. And like Mortal Kombat, the series, it stays very true to actual Mortal Kombat origins for a lot of the characters.
Here's my recommendation for Mortal Kombat. I watched this movie, and I've maybe dabbled in like Mortal Kombat once or twice at an arcade cabinet, and I'm ass at fighting games. And after I watched this movie, I bought a Mortal Kombat game and proceeded to play it for one whole day until I remembered that I'm ass at fighting games, and it was really hard, and I stopped playing it. No, this movie's actually pretty entertaining.
It's very good.
I mean, yes. Yeah, for like a video game adaptation of a fighting game, it's so good. It's entertaining. Like it's not deep. It's not like
it's dudes punching each other with special powers.
It's a guy gets his like arms like torn off and blood and guts go everywhere. Like it's what you want when you see a Mortal Kombat movie. Though I will say the cold opening when they're like in Japan and that whole scene right there, like when the movie started and that scene ended, I was like, wow, like is this gonna be like the greatest movie I've ever watched in my life kind of thing? Because that opening scene is phenomenal.
So great. And it's lore accurate for the most part.
That
is actually how the origins of Scorpion and Sub-Zero are. So.
Yeah.
At least in the current timeline, that's how it is.
I do not know much about character origins for Mortal Kombat, but it's easy to follow if you don't really know a whole lot about Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, the movie, you don't need to know anything about it.
I didn't, but I still liked it. My dad watched this with me because he surprisingly was like, text me, he's like, hey, you want to watch Mortal Kombat? I was like, I do. Do you want to watch Mortal Kombat? I do. So he came over and watched it, and
a good time.
He was like, I like that. That was good. I was like, have you ever played Mortal Kombat? No, but he liked it. So got someone who Brennan's played a ton of Mortal Kombat. I played like 2 games of Mortal Kombat. My dad's played no Mortal Kombat. There's 3 people.
I wouldn't say a ton of Mortal Kombat. I've played 9 and I've played 11 and I've played like a little bit of like 1, 2, and 3 in the past. But this was like before. I mean, 11 is obviously after I got super into fighting games, but 9 was the precursor to Dragon Ball FighterZ, and I was like, this is fun. And I played it with friends a little bit and had a good time with it. But
I don't remember which one I got. I got the one has Jason Voorhees.
That's 10.
Friday the 13th. 10, okay.
10's the one with all the
It was $5 whole, so I figured if I suck and hate this, it's a Big Mac, so there we go.
That's McDonald's money, who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
No. Have you seen Mortal Kombat, Nick?
Yeah, did you see Mortal Kombat, Nick?
No, I haven't.
Really?
I haven't ever played a Mortal Kombat game, so...
Dang. That's a good sign.
Do you have HBO Max? I think it's still on HBO Max.
I don't.
Well, I have it on Blu-ray, so you can borrow my copy.
We will have the trifecta.
Godzilla, and
Mortal Kombat.
Now you need to be prefaced with the original 2 from the 80s that are absolutely terrible, but a really fun time.
I heard the first one. I think
the first one's actually pretty decent.
I heard the first one's not bad. Annihilation and sequel sucks. But it's just so bad it's good kind of stuff.
It's super campy 80s action movie all the way through in both of them. So you get what you get.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, Nick. What is your number 4?
I actually need to grab this poster. I forgot to grab it.
The number 4 is The Beatles Get Back. And since we have to do a movie. Rather than a mini series, I did the movie version that they showed as the rooftop concert, which I will say out of the 3 was probably one of my more favorite, just because I mean it's just like watching a concert rather than the rest of it. But super fascinating documentary. Not like a typical documentary where you have like a narrator and all of those kind of things, and you go through like all these different facts and stuff like that. Oh boy!
I apologize. That is like the biggest one I found quickly. I could dig, but it was a tiny image, and I apologize for how blurry
it works.
Too funny. But yeah,
not a lot of actual promotional material for this.
This is just like towards the end of this is their final actually like together like final concert that they did together. And it was in an era where this band, well known, was at the prime, of their time. was kind of like somewhat separating, somewhat getting on each other's nerves, trying to kind of make the magic happen, but trying to find it along the way as well. And it is so interesting to watch a creative process like happen with all of that like in mind. Like just getting to know someone's creative process at a point in their life. And to see one of the most famous bands, known around the world, get to see that is so interesting. You get snippets of, they're playing songs that, they're making up on the spot or that they've been working on for a bit. And then all of a sudden, to kind of drum up some energy and some trying to figure out, the next thing they switch to a favorite song of theirs, from back in the day. And then they switch to just like a pop song or, or an old like lullaby or gospel song from, and they just go back and forth and they like flip around and they've got meetings, business meetings and all sorts of stuff that they got to go back and forth. They're trying to figure out where they're supposed to do it. They're going to be in in another country, going to do it in some random place in the desert. And then, it all ends up leading up to basically they find a new venue and they have a studio that they're working out of. And they just end up doing a concert on the rooftop in the middle of London. And a free concert. I mean, it's like, what band have you ever heard of? Like, when has this ever happened again? Where a band just at the time, the prime of their career ends up just like doing some random free show, which it wasn't even like a really well put together show. Like they played songs several times in different versions or feels of them. It was almost like a practice on top of the roof of songs that they were going to put into an album. And so it's really fascinating kind of look at it. And it's just kind of a plain look at things. It's super long. Each episode is like 3 hours long or so.
Wow.
So the full thing is like 9 hours. Yeah. And they were supposed to, all this film was supposed to go for like a TV series that they were going to do to kind of promote the album. And so it's just kind of a neat look. And what I really appreciated was in the end, they did an interview with Peter Jackson, and he got to show it to Paul McCartney. And I guess Paul McCartney, his like view of that time was really bad. Like he just like felt like it wasn't a good light for him, for any of the other guys. Like it just was like a really sour memory for a long time. And actually getting to like rewatch it all again, he was like, it actually wasn't that bad, and we like looked like we actually like had fun with one another, and we're really like enjoying ourselves. And so I think that's kind of neat, even too, is to like give back to these artists too, like a memory, and to like reframe it in a positive light, since really their last chance altogether was kind of a sour moment for him, in the end. And so it kind of just a whole neat experience. So yeah, really, really loved it. Love their music and have always been a fan of the Beatles. And so it was kind of neat to see this version of it. So even with the 9 hours, I've watched it twice so far. Wow. Yeah, it's something that I like to just throw in the background if I'm doing something else, and get to hear them kind of jam away at different songs and all sorts of stuff.
This is one on my list to watch because I do really like the Beatles too. And it's really interesting to hear you say that, because I've always heard like the time when they made Get Back, like they all hated each other. They all wanted out. I think it was Ringo quit and was just like, F off, I'm out, bye. I think it was Ringo.
George Harrison.
Oh, it was Harrison? Okay. I couldn't remember if it was Ringo or Harrison. And they had to call him, basically plead to get him back. They're like, please come back and finish the CD. Yeah. And, so it's really interesting to hear you say that, they showed this to Paul McCartney. And he, after so many years have passed and after two of your bandmates have died, to kind of like recontextualize like an era of what happened and be like, maybe it wasn't as shitty as I thought it was. And I'm sure it brought up a lot of like emotions. Like I couldn't imagine someone makes a documentary about this dumb D&D game that we do, and if we just have this like horrible blowout at the end that ends our game, and then I'm like 80 and someone's like, hey, here's all this footage of you guys doing your game, watch it, it's a 10-hour documentary, and I'd probably break down and cry at a couple points. So
yeah, and it would be like all the conversations we had before or after our stream and all those kind of things. Like, it just these like simple stupid moments, but when you like look back at them, you know, it really are like moments that you cherish, and you know, and when things are in the business side of things and very serious, you know, maybe, you know, just like, and if you want to use that analogy, you know, like we're really intense into the story and trying to really, you know, really hard create something that people love, that sometimes you get lost in the weeds of like just those little moments throughout the whole thing that really brought the joy, you know, that we kind of rekindled all that. And so that's a lot of what this is kind of just the behind the scenes of this big famous moment, this, you know, rooftop concert. So
I might try to watch this this coming weekend here if I have a little bit extra time. This sounds pleasant.
Yeah. That's my number
Brent,
4.
I'm assuming you haven't seen this either.
No, I have not.
All right. Well, I will go ahead. Nick, if you're all done.
All done.
I will go ahead and move on to my number 4, which is the newest film I have seen on my list here. I technically watched this in 22, but it's a 21 movie. Another glorious box office bomb, thanks to where it was placed, which is Ridley Scott's The Last Duel. And I had to pull up the Wikipedia article because I can't pronounce any of these French names. So I'm going to do my best. But basically, this film chronicles the very real last duel that ever happened in France. There's like one or two that happened afterwards, but this is like the last big one. So basically, you've got Jean de, God, I can't pronounce these names. I'm not French. You have Jean, who he marries this woman named Marguerite. He has a buddy, or kind of a rival, named Jacques. And Marguerite accuses Jacques of raping her, and Jean challenges him to a duel to the death to basically prove her innocence, and that is what the film is about. However, it's a really, really unique movie because it takes the three perspectives of Jean, who's played by Matt Damon, Jacques, who's played by Adam Driver, and then Marguerite, who is played by Jodie Comer. And it kind of breaks down like how they're viewing like the events that are happening. So for like, you see Jean's first, and in his mind, you know, he's this honorable man who has been wronged by his lord, who doesn't like him, and has been wronged by his former friend Jacques, and he's fighting for the honor of his wife and the honor of his family. Jacques' storyline is basically, yo, this dude I used to serve under is an asshole and kind of like an idiot. The Lord guy super likes me and's giving me all this stuff. Oh, and my buddy's wife hates him and comes on to me, so we bang. And then Marguerite's, which interestingly enough is referred to as the truth of the matter, is basically my husband's an egotistical asshole who's more concerned about like his status and his lands than he is about me, and the other dude's the guy that raped me. So it's a very interesting look at like systematic misogyny that existed at this time. Some phenomenal medieval combat. Like I don't think I've seen medieval combat done quite as well as in this movie. Just a lot of interesting things like I didn't know. I don't want to get too much into it because some of it's kind of dark. This is definitely one of those like know before you go into it movie. There is a relatively graphic rape scene that's shown twice. So if you are uncomfortable with that stuff, probably not the movie for you. But I really liked it. It's an interesting look at a time when things were not nearly as nice as they are now, I think, with just how things were and how things are. Yeah. Also, this is the movie that did so bad at the box office that Ridley Scott blamed millennials and their phones for it failing. So, fuck you, Ridley Scott. I watched your movie. And granted, I waited till it came out in streaming because your studio stuck in between Halloween Kills and Dune. And I was going to go see those movies before I saw this one. So, yeah, you made a good movie, but fuck off. I don't know if you guys have seen this one. I'm assuming, well, Brendan, you were in it because you were Adam Driver.
Yeah.
You were in it.
I probably shouldn't make that joke for this movie specifically, but
no.
Our joke is that Brendan looks like Adam Driver, so we make this, that's a family joke amongst everyone.
Running gag, if you will, that I am just Adam
running
Driver.
Gag.
in the future I learn how to time travel so I come back in time with my alias Adam Driver and become a massive movie star.
Yep. He gets swole for Star Wars.
Swole for Star Wars.
Big thick boy.
Yeah, big thick boy. He gets, but D&D propels him into stardom where he comes back in time and becomes Adam Driver.
No, I have not seen Last Duel.
It is on HBO Max now, if anyone is ever interested in watching it. It's longer. I think it's 2.5 hours. So, it's 153 minutes, which, yeah, it's like 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours, yeah. A little over.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Definitely a more mature film. I'd say of all of the movies on my list, it's probably like the most like mature of the movies. It definitely earns its R rating. Going back to some of the medieval combat, it is very bloody. The titular duel at the end, that's like the climax of this film, is one of the most brutal fight scenes I've seen in a long time in a movie. In a lot of movies, you watch them, they get all fancy with the sword work and the foot play to make it all stylish and cool. This is just two dudes in armor, on horses, trying to beat the hell out of each other. And then when they get knocked off their horses, they grab axes and then try to beat the hell out of each other with those. And it is very visceral. So yeah, that's my number 4.
All right. So I guess going into my number 3.
Top 3.
My top 3, and I feel like it's probably worth saying for my top 10, not well, top 5 with 4 honorable mentions. They're not like
top 5 with honorables.
They're not particularly in any order of how much I really did or did not enjoy them. I thought they're all very good. I just kind of put them in the order that I thought was most interesting to me as far as movies. But Let There Be Carnage, a movie that I watched yesterday, which is a lot campier than the first Venom, actually, surprisingly, despite the fact that it's also like way more, like, I guess, gruesome in a way. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. I continue to think that Tom Hardy is a good Venom and makes for a good Venom. The actual like symbiote fighting was actually really good. Venom is kind of silly in this movie, like the actual symbiote Venom is kind of silly, but I'm okay with it. I'm here for silly Venom. I think it's a good time and kind of funny. But all around, it's a good movie. Great action. Plot's pretty solid, and Venom looks better. Doesn't look as rough around the edges as I initially thought with when the first Venom was coming out. I think Let There Be Carnage definitely kind of nailed the symbiote look much better in this one.
The guy on the right in the poster looks so out of place compared to everyone else.
Yeah, so
Woody Harrelson.
Sorry, I keep complaining about the posters. Just some of these superhero posters are so bad.
Yeah, they are. He did a great job actually as the villain, as Carnage.
Woody Harrelson's a great actor. I'm not insulting him at all. Just whoever designs these is funny.
Yeah, these posters are sometimes a little silly, but he did a great job as oh god, I'm so bad with names. But as Carnage, I don't remember the name of the serial killer that becomes Carnage, but he does a great job as Carnage.
Joe Booty.
I'm assuming I'm probably the only one that saw Let There Be Carnage.
Yep, nope.
Yep.
Didn't watch Venom 1, definitely didn't watch Venom 2.
Yeah. Honestly, it's better. It's way better than Venom 1.
That is what I have heard. I have heard Venom 2 is a better film.
It's a little bit campier, but it does it in a fun way rather than kind of like we're being campy to be campy. Like, it feels a lot more, after watching Venom 1, it feels a lot more fleshed out as the two characters of Venom and Eddie Brock.
Hey, nothing's wrong with campy. Sometimes campy movies are the best if they're done right.
It's a great time, and the big final fight is really well done and really fun. I like it.
Nice.
I don't want to spoil too much because it's like somewhat recent of a movie, so. And obviously you got fun post-credit stuff that some people do know about and some people don't know about, which is a fun little thing to see.
Nick, I'm also assuming you have not seen this since you didn't see Venom 1.
I have not.
It is okay. I recommend them. They're quite fun.
I may have to check them out.
All right.
All right, Nick, your numero 3.
All right. Number 3 is Summer of Soul. This is another music documentary based on the Harlem Cultural Festival. in 1969. So it was interesting how they did it. So they did it over 6 weekends that they did it, spaced out over the summer of 1969. They had done 2 of these festivals beforehand. This was the 3rd one, and this 3rd one was like the big one. They had all sorts of big names, as you can see on there. They've got Stevie Wonder, B.B. King, Nina Simone. They had David Ruffin from the Temptations, and Gladys Knight, and so lots of big names that were here that kind of spaced out over this whole summer. What's interesting about this is the same summer was Woodstock. Woodstock happened in August, and this ended in August, started in June, and so they were happening about the same time, and yet no one really knows about this Harlem Cultural Festival.
I've never heard of it.
And there was a guy who was documenting it because this is a year after Martin Luther King died, and so this is a very volatile time, very emotional time, and yet all because really, Woodstock all happens in one weekend. It's one, festival. It's nice, neat, and tidy. Also, it's all the big popular, white artists that were at the time. This is in Harlem, but over the summer, 300,000 people attended this festival. Woodstock, 400,000 people attended. So about the same draw of people. But what do we hear most about is Woodstock.
Yeah.
And this film has been since 1969. There's been a couple public showings of snippets of it, but there's roughly 50 hours of film that was in the guy who filmed it's basement until Questlove, the drummer for the Roots, he wanted to get this out, and so just really, really fascinating stuff. Great music in it all. Some emotional moments. Some kind of passing the torch between some people. Stevie Wonder is a young Stevie Wonder in this. It's a lot of fun. He's hilarious and on stage, and so a lot of really cool moments. You get to see a lot during the documentary. They show moments of people who were at the festival, or actually some of the artists watching these clips of this time and kind of helping them remember and get to re-see these things. And some of those are so emotional moments for them and for just to be there as a viewer. There were several times that I cried throughout the film, and it's just very, very beautiful, well done, and kind of a take back on some history that we kind of lose in the U.S. that has kind of been hidden. So really, really cool project. Really glad I got to see this. So
that sounds really interesting. That'd be another one I'm gonna have to, Nick, all your movies I want to put on my list of things I need to see here.
So. It's on Hulu, so
I see it.
In theaters 2nd. And on Hulu. It's coming out soon, guys. July 2nd. A few months away.
A few months. No. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. There's a lot of our culture and history that's been pushed aside and lost and stuff, and I appreciate it when they bring stuff like this back out. Like you said, it's good music.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will.
My number 3.
Definitely be moving that there. All right. So you all good, Nick?
All good.
All right. I will move on to my number 3, which is my cheat, because technically this movie came out in 2020. It had a small US release in 2020 at the end, but the Blu-ray didn't come out until 21, so 90% of people probably didn't see it in the US, which is Fate's Day Night, Heaven's Feel 3 Spring Song, but it's more for the entire Fate, Stay Night, Heaven's Feel movie trilogy. So this is an adaptation of a Japanese visual novel, Fate, Stay Night, specifically the third and final route, Heaven's Feel. And overall, this trilogy was awesome. I kind of got into this anime, but it's really more of a multimedia franchise. In the end of 2021, I kind of ate through like all of it by the end of December, and this kind of capped everything off. And what's kind of nice about these movies is a lot of the like mystery and some of the plot lines that aren't 100% explained in like the other adaptations and stuff, they get explained here in some capacity. Plot basically is you've got this high schooler, Shiro Emiya, who finds himself embroiled in what's called the Holy Grail War, which is a war between mages where they summon legends and heroes from Earth's history to basically duke it out for this titular Holy Grail, which is the ultimate wish-granting device. This last set of films here, it's almost, I'm going to describe it like this. It's almost like Avengers Endgame, not in terms of like everyone coming together, but in terms of like capping the story off in a meaningful and satisfying way. And what's kind of interesting with these adaptations is like how the game is structured. Like you do these routes in the game and the route ends, and like the story ended at the end of the route, and then you do another route and the story ends. And so it's not like this is a sequel. It's not like this is it's like a retelling. But with what gets introduced in this movie and kind of the things that are focused on in terms of the plot, it really ties like everything together, makes it make sense. There's a lot of like thematic carryover where certain themes and character arcs kind of get finished or subverted in ways that you don't expect in these movies. And yeah, they were overall just really, really enjoyable. Literally some of the best animation I've ever seen in an anime film, like ever. Especially this third film, the fight scene between two of the servants is just jaw-droppingly amazing. Only thing I'll say about these is if you're looking at this cover and you're like, this looks cool, I'm going to check this out. Don't, because you don't want to start with these movies. You'll be lost. You'll be confused. Literally the first film puts like the opening of the story in the opening credits as like a just quick flash of events. And it's just like, boom, movie starts. So you'll just be completely lost. But yeah, I don't know how the sub's like. I watched this dub, so sue me. But I really enjoyed these. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should say. Fate's a fun franchise. This is mostly there because I got into Fate, and I've like watched everything, and it has good parts, it has bad parts. If I had to criticize anything, it's a little edgy at times. It has that sleek sheen mid-2000s anime storytelling where we had all this kind of weird edgy shit because we can, and you're just kind of like, really? Did we really need to do that? But it happens. Also, I will say too, for whatever reason, the 3 films are all like the 2-hour mark, and they probably all could have been like 15 to 30 minutes longer because not everything is like 100% explained the best. I had to look up some stuff online because I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, or like, I don't understand this concept. It comes with being an adaptation. They can't fit everything into their given runtime. I'll also say the first film doesn't really have an ending or a conclusion. It sort of just ends. It's like, that movie's done. You're just kind of like, oh, great, okay. But the second and third films are definitely really, really good. Especially, I like the third one the best of all, which is why I picked it. So yeah, check Fate out. Don't check these movies out. Just check this franchise out, and then check these movies out. The prequel is on Netflix. They just took off Unlimited Blade Works, but if you get like it might be on Hulu. I'll have to double check. Or you can just come to my house and we'll do a giant watch party again, because I own like everything, or have the streaming services where you can watch it. So yeah, that's my thing. I know Nick hasn't seen this. I'm assuming you haven't seen it.
No, I haven't seen any of it yet.
Watch Fate, Nick.
Watch Fate. One of those animes that one of my friends is super into, and I've been like, I will get to it because I've wanted to get to it even before he got into it, and I just never got around to it because it's just so there's so much.
There's a lot.
And I'm like, I'm still trying to catch up on JoJo's because I'm so behind, and all these other anime that I want to watch, and this is just like, this is a big thing to take on.
Yeah, there's like 4 main anime series that are like part of counting this movie, that are part of like the original story. One of those is also a prequel. There is like 2 spin-off shows. There's like 3 spin-off shows. One of those spin-off shows is multiple seasons. It's a lot, but if you're interested in Fate, either start with Unlimited Blade Works or start with there's just an anime called Fate Stay Night, or find the visual novel, download it illegally, figure out how to translate it, and read that. That's what people on Reddit tell me to do. When I told them I watched the anime, they were like, "You're an idiot. You should have read the visual novel. You should kill yourself." And I'm like, "I hate you, Reddit." So, yeah, there you go. Also, I realized this too, looking at this, that both of the Japanese anime films, which, if you can't tell from my wife and my figure collection back there that we are both into, both of these movies have ridiculously long, stupid titles.
Yes, anime just in general is
I don't understand that. Like, especially Ava's like, why don't you just call it 4? Why is it 3.1 or 3.0 plus 1.0? Thrice Upon a Time. Why isn't it just 4.0? The first one was 1.0. The second one was 2.0. The third one was 3.0. Why isn't the fourth one 4.0? So, stupid rant.
Just what they do.
That's what they do. They like their long titles.
Yeah.
That's how you end up with all those like light novels that have like a paragraph as their title.
The plot synopsis is the name of the series.
Synopsis is the title, basically.
That's what it's becoming.
It's literally it's
hilarious.
It's like I swear there's like a literal competition over there to see how fucking stupid I can make my title. It's like I was a middle-aged office worker who got hit by a donut and died and fell into a well and was transported to Fun Land, and now I'm the most powerful sorcerer ever, and I use donut magic and all the ladies love me, and that's the fucking title of your book. Just on the cover, just filling in all this the area on the cover.
It is insane.
I'm gonna write that as a novel. Here I come, Japan.
Oh boy.
I'll come back to the stream so I remember what my title is, and I'll just write my whole premise around a donut mage.
Well, there's that movie on Netflix that just came out that's similar to that.
He's a donut mage?
No, but it's like, it's a ridiculously long title. It's like the girl across the street.
Yeah, it's the woman in the window across the street who's great. Yeah, Sam and I started watching that last night.
Not good.
It's really weird. And I like really weird shit. I put Ava on this list. I like weird shit, but it's very, very strange, and it's very all over the place. Definitely like an unreliable narrator, and so you don't know what's real, what isn't real. So I like that stuff, but I haven't gotten into it. I don't know if she likes it or not, so I'll report back. But yeah, Fate Stay Night, check it out. Link in the description.
There's too many to put there.
I know there's be so many links for all these dumb movies.
All right. Well.
All right, Brendan. My number two.
My number 2 is a little bit of a cheat. It technically came out within the time period. That's Bo Burnham's Inside. Technically not a movie.
I didn't think about this one either.
It is a film, quote unquote, and it's a comedy special, but it came out in the time period. I watched it like basically as soon as it came out because I love Bo Burnham. I've been watching Bo Burnham's comedy stuff for a while. He is hilarious, and Inside is also that. It is hilarious, but oh my god, it messes you up. I was messed up for a good like 2 weeks after I watched this. It I don't know what it was, something about it just hit so hard, and I was just like, oh no, existential dread, everything sucks, the world is terrible, it's all on fire. But it was funny, and that's basically just Inside. It's just Bo Burnham slowly descending into madness, making this, and that's like the whole thing. Well, he just makes a bunch of funny, silly songs, and it's a great time.
I think what's most impressive is he wrote, directed, shot, and edited this movie on his own during the pandemic. Yeah. And I'm with you, Brendan. I remember, I think we watched this the week it came out, and I was like, wow, that was a kick in the dick.
It messes you up.
It was what everyone was feeling during the pandemic. Oh, yeah. Like, it started off, and it kind of starts off like, aw, this will
be a fun little thing to do.
Yeah, we're
inside, fun. It'll be fine to just kind of do something
I'll be home for 2 weeks, and then it just gets like worse and worse, and you're just stuck inside more and more, and it has a lot to deal with like depression and a lot of his songs, though they are funny, are also like pretty heartfelt too. Like, he's got some in there that are just, I don't know if I'd call them funny songs. They're just like impactful.
Oh god, what is it called? Welcome to the Internet's really funny, but also being like, this is what happened. This is what happened with the internet, and here's how it went from silly funny things to everything is ours. Give us your data, please. We're selling it to everyone. Give us everything. This was always what we wanted to do. give me money.
Speaking of which, if you click the link in the description, we get 3 cents for every click. No, I'm kidding.
There are no links.
I'm kidding. There's
Actually,
no
there are links in the description, but they're not.
They won't pay us.
No, they're links to my stuff. They're links to the Twitch channel. But it's great. Highly recommend if you like Bo Burnham. It's musical comedy, so this is very real. Be in the right mindset for it. It's a good time though. It's really good. He did a great job. Also liked 8th Grade, but I didn't. That's a little older, and I watched that also right at the time it came out. That's a movie he directed, and it's
I haven't seen that.
Also like very real and really good.
I heard he's really good. He didn't write or direct it. He starred in it or acted in it, but Promising Young Woman is supposed to be really good too. Yeah. He's like the bad guy in that movie. Nick, did you see Inside?
I did. Yeah.
What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a really, really good. You know, one of those kind of period pieces where I think people will look back at this time when they think of COVID and the pandemic and all those kind of things. Like it's one of those things where I think it'll be a great snapshot into, like you said, what a lot of people were feeling. I think he does a really good job of being intentional with all of the lighting and the words that he chooses and when to put it. Like it just thinking about 8th Grade and all those kind of things and hearing his process behind making the film. Like it just very, very smart guy. But it is interesting to see kind of a light. It's one of those things, and he even says it, you know, in his songs, but it's one of those things where it's like, is he even performing?
Yeah, is
this
a performance or is this real?
Yeah, you know, and it's one of those things where it's hard, and he's always going to, as a performer, always going to be criticized or thought of in that way, and probably thus is thinking of himself that way. And but you know, in all of it, yeah, there's a lot of rawness to it, a lot of relatability for a lot of people during that time, and so why it was such a cultural zeitgeist at the time where everybody really needed to see it Inside and wanted to talk about it, just because it's one of those things where you're like, I get that, and I also probably am feeling a lot of the same similar things, and so yeah, really well done. Also, we get Jeffrey Bezos, you know, out of it, so you know, the theme song to Amazon, you know, thank you, Bo Burnham.
Yep.
But it covers a lot of fun stuff like depression, anxiety, and imposter syndrome of all things. You don't see that one very often. People don't talk about imposter syndrome, but he covered it very, very well in there.
Yeah,
definitely a great time. Not a super fun time because it's very real, but a great time.
A lot of songs are bangers. I have a couple of them on my like car playlist just because I like listening to them.
But Bo Burnham he knows how to write them.
Good stuff.
He's a great musician and comedian.
He's definitely really matured into like an element too. Like, and when he was YouTube, he was just kind of like goofy and funny, and you know,
silly offensive things.
He had more like shock humor a little bit. Like I remember like What was kind of like that more shock kind of humor, and then I think it was his next special, Make Happy, is when I felt like
Make Happy really got existential,
introspective, and like I hate what I do, and it's a really unique thing to see. You know, someone with Make Happy and Inside kind of like look in as a performer where you're like, you have everything, you're famous and you have all the stuff, be like, no, I have anxiety and I have stage fright and I hate my audience, but I need my, you know, all this kind of stuff. So it's just a unique take on a lot of stuff, and it's funny. Usually it's like 75% of the time funny. All right, Nick, what's your numero dos?
My numero dos, Shiva Baby.
Shiva Baby. Oh, I think you told me about this movie.
Yeah. I thought you would enjoy it because it's a comedy that is framed as a horror film. I wouldn't call it like a dark comedy, but the music is all horror film music throughout it, but it's just this average day that is framed as a horror film, which is so interesting because it is, I mean, to a person who's going through something like this is like a horror film. This is a nightmare, you know, that someone's going through. Basically, the premise is this girl, she's a college-aged girl, in order to like pay her way through college and make some money, she has sugar daddies, and so the very beginning of the film, she is just done having sex and is asking for money, and the guy, he wants more of a relationship, and she's just like, this is a business transaction. I'm getting my money. I'm getting out of here. Leaves, and then she gets a call that she's going to this Shiva. And so it's kind of like a Jewish tradition after a funeral, not quite like a wake or anything, or like a viewing or anything like that. But there's some more cultural significance. I don't know really too much about the tradition, and you don't really need to know too much about it. I'm sure there's probably some things of the day that you would recognize if you know. But just in general, she gets there, and the guy, she finds out, is a family friend of her dad's. He's also at the Shiva, and then also the wife of the man, it ends up going there with their newborn baby that she had no clue existed, and it just keeps getting worse from there. Her ex is there, and so she's just trapped it's all in this one house, the whole movie, and she is just trapped in there because her family is her only ride, and she has to kind of perform to make her look like she's a successful college student in front of all of her family's friends and all of those kind of things, while she is like very, very, her world is spiraling, and she's trying to hold it together so that people don't find out, what her kind of second life is. And so it is just, it's incredibly tense. It's hilarious all the way to the end. It's a short film, and it just, the final scene, Melissa and I, my wife and I, we just started, it's one of those things where you're like, you felt like you didn't take a breath for like an hour and a half. And then that final scene, we just started busting out laughing at how awkward it was and how like unaware her dad was of like the situation. Like it just, because it's a normal situation. Like it's just a normal day for him, but it's been an absolute nightmare for her. And he has now made the most awkward, the pinnacle, the climax of it awkward, and has no clue. And so you just can't help but take that last kind of gasp for air and laugh in that last scene. And it is just a perfect ending to it. So I just was looking at the time, looking at like, Oscar award-winning films and all of those kind of things. This had popped up, and so I was just like, seems interesting, in watching it, and I was pleasantly surprised. One of my favorite films. So Shiva, baby.
I was bad because you told me to watch this like almost a year ago, I think, and I didn't. So I need to sit down and watch this one as well.
I didn't even know this existed until today. So.
Yeah.
The more you know. It's all about what today is, learning about new movies, like Fate.
And like Shang-Chi, the movie you never knew existed.
Yeah, or Spider-Man.
Movies or Spider-Man. The entire Spider-Man trilogy.
We're hitting those really indie films,
those deep cuts.
I've been pretty impressed with our list so far, Nick. You've hit some real good ones.
Yeah, some really obscure
I've never heard of before. So yeah. I thought I was gonna have the more obscure movie list, but I think you might top me out here. I'm proud of you. You brought the heat today.
But I feel like I've hit pretty normal things, Soul and
I think everyone's got a mix. Everyone's got a mix.
Yep,
including Brennan's honorable mentions.
Yeah.
Honorable mentions.
My two Spider-Man, Venom, and Joker, the movies that no one's ever heard of.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess I'll go and move on to my number 2. And my 1 and 2 are almost interchangeable for me. I struggled to know. I knew these were my top 2. And I struggled to know which one to make my 2, which my second is The Green Knight. You'll see my first shortly here. But I just rewatched this movie today because I wanted to prepare to talk about it because it'd been a couple months since I'd seen it. So this movie is an adaptation of the poem Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. which follows Sir Gawain, who is, in the poem, he's one of Arthur's knights. In the movie, he's not. He's his nephew, who's not yet a knight. He's kind of a layabout, and, you know, he just spends his time, like, in a brothel, like, with his, like, the one girl that he's into. He doesn't really do anything, and his mother, Morgan Le Fay, who's King Arthur's sister, and if you also know Arthurian legend, is, like, a witch that tries to, like, screw King Arthur and kill him and all this other stuff, sends the titular Green Knight to a Christmas party that King Arthur's having with a game of, if any of you knights are strong enough to land a blow upon me, in 1 year's time, you will travel to the Green Chapel, meet me, and I will land a blow of equal power upon you. And if you do this, you get my axe. And so all the knights at the round table are kind of like, I don't know. And in his kind of youthful ignorance, Sir Gawain, or as they pronounce in this movie, Gawain, because I guess I learned that no one knows how his name's supposed to be pronounced, so everyone in this movie pronounces his name in a different way, and it's done on purpose. I found that out because David Lowery did an interview and he mentioned that. Anyways, so Gawain cuts this guy's head off, and he picks his head up. He's like, 1 year henceforth. And he rides off. And a year later, Gawain has to travel to the Green Chapel to confront the knight. And along the way, he has all of these like tests that sort of happen, or these events that sort of happen as he heads there. And it's a very interesting movie. This is another movie that got marketed horribly because it was marketed like it was going to be this like epic King Arthur, like swords and sorcery kind of movie, and it's not that at all. It is a introspective, slow-paced character study kind of movie, and there's no sword fighting at all in the movie. You think that Gawain and this Green Knight are gonna duke it out, and literally he just like bows and is just like, okay, do what you want to me, and he just cuts his head off right there. Cinematography though in this movie, chef's kiss, literal chef's kiss. It's probably some of the best cinematography I've seen all year. I think the cinematography is better than my number one pick, but it's just so good. Everything about this movie is so good. Definitely not a movie for everyone though. Slower movie, a lot of characters talking about the themes. Movie's very much about like what it means to be like honorable, what it means to be, I don't want to say like a man, but what it means to like grow up kind of and like come into your own. And it's interesting because Sir Gawain goes on all these like, I'm going to call them mini quests on his greater quest to get to the Green Chapel. And he kind of fails at every single one of them. Like he's kind of a coward. He's kind of lazy. He's a bit of a dick actually. And kind of how the movie concludes is it sort of ambiguously says like, that might not matter. It's more about like your intentions than like what the actual outcome is. Also, this film's climax is a 10 to 15 minute sequence where there is no dialogue, just some sounds, maybe like light chatter or something, but no actual dialogue, and just music that kind of builds to like the final moment. And it is an amazing final sequence. I almost think it's worth like the price of the movie alone. Like you can sit through the whole movie and maybe think like, I don't fucking know what's going on. Like this is kind of weird. The ending is so well done, so well shot. It's so impactful that like I had this on in the background while I was at work, and I literally put my computer down because the ending came on. I'm like, I have to watch the last 15 minutes. Hold on a second, guys. So yeah. Funny enough, when I saw this in theaters, I didn't know what to think of it when I walked out of it. But of all the films this year on this list, even more so than my number one, this film has stuck with me like up here and in here more than any other movie. And yeah, it's good. It's so good that expect there to be maybe some Green Knight influences coming shortly to the D&D campaign. I'll just throw that little tidbit out there.
Oh boy.
So I don't know if you guys have seen this one. If you haven't, heard of it. Like, well, I highly, highly recommend you check it out. Also, you brought that up earlier, Nick. I don't remember what movie you brought this up for, but A24 did this movie. So, like, kind of indie, kind of strange sort of film.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yep. Yeah, this came out in July. It did okay at the box office. This is a funny movie though, because we saw it at like 7 on a Thursday. I really wanted to see it, and the guy behind us fell asleep. So like at like 2/3 of the movies, and you just hear this dude snoring behind us, because there's some real slow moments in this movie, and they just like linger on shots and stuff. So, but yeah, watch this movie. Nick, come over, watch this movie. Brennan, come over, watch this movie. I will always watch The Green Knight. I would have shown it to you in Tennessee if that Blu-ray player would have worked properly, and I could have put it on.
No.
Unfortunately.
Oh, so good. I could gush about this movie for hours. So well acted. Dave Patel is Gawain, and I'm gonna mispronounce his name too, just to fit the theme here. And it's like he does such a good job. Everyone does such a good job in this movie. All right, I'm gonna stop talking about it, or we'll be here for 4 more hours.
All right, well, time to go into number one.
Number one. We made it.
We made it to the top.
If you've survived this long, which I think we've been the only people on here for the whole time, but that's okay. Someone will watch this later.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I learned about some movies I didn't know about, like that Summer of Soul and stuff like that. So
my number one is a little hidden gem.
Unknown film.
Little unknown film. Not many people know about it. It wasn't that big when it came out, so people don't know too much about it. It's Spider-Man No Way Home, the indie classic, as you all know. Honestly, I think now, in fairness, I have not seen Into the Spider-Verse yet. I still need to get around to doing it. I really want to watch it. Everything I know about that movie is amazing, from the little animation details to the actual plot.
If you do end up coming over to play the Lord of the Rings card game, we will take a break to watch Into the Spider-Verse. I will sacrifice game time to watch that movie with you.
Definitely want to see it at some point.
Oh, it's. I think it's the best Spider-Man movie. Like, but bar none. I will drag you in the street, fight you over that.
We'll drag down 2 all the way down. Everything down a spot and throw it Into the Spider-Verse for your number 2 there.
Into the Spider-Verse is just up there.
But as I was saying, aside from Into the Spider-Verse, because I haven't seen that yet, this is easily my favorite Spider-Man movie that has ever been made. Between the Sam Raimi and the Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland, this is, I think, the best Spider-Man movie that has ever been made, at least on the live-action side. It is so great. There's so many little nods and details, and man, William Dafoe was old, and I appreciate that he decided to do his own stunts for this movie. That is actually insane that he did that. I don't know how he did that, but he did. And I'm going to try to avoid spoilers as best I can, but obviously this poster has some like minor things that I'm pretty sure are all in promotional material anyways, as far as like some of the villains that show up. So apologies if you didn't know about that, but there they are, right in front of you.
Do we break the seal on this one? I feel like this one you can't talk about without breaking the seal.
I am not going to, personally, because I think it is worth it going in not knowing that, even though you probably already do, because the internet is the internet.
I think everyone knows. I mean, this movie's already made over $1 billion. I can assume almost everyone's watched this. If you haven't watched Into the Spider-Man No Way Home, turn it off. And
that you're so dedicated that
please watch it. It is genuinely amazing.
I think you got to rip the Band-Aid off on this one.
I have avoided it on actual stream when I've talked about it, because I don't know where people are. They might not have had time yet. I know I almost didn't have time for it. But man, it is so good. Everything, all the little details. There's like so many small Easter eggs with everything, from small nods. They do the classic line in this movie finally, and it's word for word exactly the way it was in the original comic books. Not a lot of people actually know that Uncle Ben didn't say the famous "with a responsibility" or "with great power comes great responsibility." That was always Aunt May in the comics, and it actually isn't just "with great power comes great responsibility." It's great power and then comes great responsibility, which was also spoken in this line. That's a fun little detail, which I think is also in the Insomniac game as well as that particular phrase spoken from May. It's so good though. There's just so many small things. Like I could go off about all the little details in this movie because there's so many small things that happen that are just great. All in all, great 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Best MCU movie ever. That might be a stretch, but very, very, very solid MCU movie. And very, very good Spider-Man. All the villains are great.
I'm curious, Nick, is this also your number one movie?
Yes. This is also my number one movie.
Yes. When I saw it, I was like, yeah, we're going to have that happen.
We had some cancels. I was wondering how many people were going to have this in our group. As
I assume
I do not have
No
this
Way
as my
Home.
number one movie. So
you said at the very beginning of Scream it was supposed to be your 10, and then it got kicked out. So
I got kicked off by my anime shit.
Yeah.
I have a feeling both Eric and Nerdy would have had this at least in their top 5, no problem.
I agree.
Yeah.
But
I assume this would be one definitely for Eric.
Yeah, definitely.
I could be wrong though. He might have liked one of the other ones better.
Definitely would have been up there though.
Well, Nick, if it's your number one, go ahead and say what you love about it.
Yeah, I mean, I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but it's like we finally got the origin story in the MCU for Spider-Man. Because it's one of those things where it's like, okay, we've gotten 2 origin stories already for Spider-Man in live action form. It's like the MCU is not going to rehash and do their own third one. So, you're not going to get the classic very beginning, origin story for Spider-Man. And so it was kind of neat where they really spurred that on. And with like his identity being revealed, just hitting a lot of these
key Spider-Man moments.
Everybody knows who Spider-Man is, and there are these classic, like you have someone in his close family has to die. Like someone, he has to be kind of this lone smart kid who's trying to figure it out in local New York and is like helping. All these people. He has, a tumultuous relationship that never really gets to be like fully realized, and he's kind of, it's always something's getting in the way of that. Usually, some sort of superhero business is getting in the way of that really getting to be, him devoting himself to that, and this like ultimate selfless character that can't really ever get what he really desires. And then it was just such a cool flip with all the villains, like to think like this is our first chance to see live action like the Sinister, well not really
not the real Sinister Six, but
most of most of them, yes, and get to do a different thing with them. We're not just seeing, because really all of these characters, it's old comic book heroes where they're just bad to be bad. Like there's just not like a lot of like great motivation for who they are, and you getting to actually see some like redeeming qualities. Like Spider-Man's ultimate goodness is that he actually wants the best for these villains rather than to just defeat them because they're his antagonists, and which makes it for an interesting story to like first bring them all into. And so it's just one of those things where you're like, it hits all the classic Spider-Man beats. It's a love letter, and not I mean, when do you ever really get to see something like that where it's just a true love letter to a character?
It very much felt like a love letter to all of the Spider-Man fans for over the last, however many years it's been.
Right, exactly. So, and it's one of those things where, like, Star Wars could have been that with its final trilogy, and it never really got to be the love letter, that really, I think, like J.J. Abrams wanted it to be, and a lot of the people who put their work into it, like it was supposed to be, and ended up never really, becoming that way. I think Endgame really gets to be a love letter, to comics and to that whole storyline. They really, played up just this like longevity of their universe, and so. get to be able to do that twice within a short period of time, like just shows how much history these characters have, and I think they did it justice with this one. So it's one of those things where it's like it's not groundbreaking. It's not, it's not something where there's a million surprises. Everybody really predicted the surprises that were going to be in here, and because you wanted it to happen.
Yeah, and exactly what you wanted, and it delivered.
Exactly, and so it's hard to be mad at it, for what it is, and but it's hard to, when you love something, you love something. So that's why it's at my number one. It feels good going down. It's McDonald's to me, It's just like, it's classic. I know what I'm getting. I got a lot of it, and it made me feel happy leaving, And it's not some of these other films doing stuff way out of the box, interesting stories, those kind of things. But I just love my friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and that's what I got.
That spider drug.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know one of my friends said that this movie really made it feel like we finally have Spider-Man. And not just Peter Parker, but we have Spider-Man. All three of them kind of finally led to the final moment of, we have Spider-Man in the MCU now.
We had Spider-Boy for a long time.
Now he's
Spider-Boy.
Spider-Man
became Spider-Man.
And I agree with that. I think No Way Home really finally made Tom Holland feel like Spider-Man is finally in the MCU, and we finally have Spider-Man.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny because it feels a little bit like what's the James Bond film or whatever that you
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die. It feels a little bit like, it felt like Tom Holland, this could be like a climax film, the end of his tenure as Spider-Man. Even he's alluded to it sometimes. And but it's so weird because
like 3 more films now, they said.
Oh yeah, because it feels like it's like the beginning, like we said. It's like Spider-Boy became Spider-Man. Like you don't end at your prime. You got, before you even enjoy your prime.
The ending was very much done in a way where if they could continue, they would continue. But if they didn't continue, then it wouldn't really super change anything.
Right?
It was a smart way to end the. It was.
They did a good job navigating the legal issues around the Spider-Man.
Sony
property.
can take it back over as their stuff.
New York City is just the eternal landing place for whoever. You could always be living in the city and no one ever see you just because it's New York City.
Yeah. No one knows.
That also was like a whole, you're like, oh yeah, New York City has like people in it, and I remember that those people exist. He pops up and he's just your average day lawyer, and you're like, oh yeah, Matt Murdock lives here.
Matt Murdock.
Oh yeah, that was a cute cameo.
Yeah, finally made the TV shows canon as well.
Yeah.
I had to explain that one to Sam because everyone started applauding in the theater.
When I saw him,
she's like, why are we clapping? I'm like, this is the dude that played Daredevil in the TV show. And she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, when I saw him, I was like, oh, we're doing this? He's actually being a lawyer now? Let's go.
I will say for me personally, I don't mind applauding in the movie theater, but when we saw it, people were like obnoxious about it, and it kind of like annoyed me while we were watching the movie. I was like, yes, I get it. Spider-Man is on screen. We've clapped. This is the 5th time we've clapped now. Like, stop. It's the same guy. But
I did not have that experience in the theaters. My theater was pretty.
If you go, we went on like opening night with like a big group of people, and you have your hyper fans there at that moment. Like, there's a guy in like almost full costume, I think, and everyone's just super hyped up to see it.
Yep.
This was a. This probably would have been, if we'd have done more than 10, this probably would have been my 11 or 12. I don't think I liked it as much as everyone else did, but I'm also not as big into the superhero movies as everyone else. So, different cheeseburger. My cheeseburger was Fate. That was my big spicy burrito.
Well, we got to hear what your big cheeseburger is.
What?
Your big double cheeseburger with all the topping.
But I said it was. But that was my list. That was fate. It was my big spicy cheeseburger.
No, you got one.
You have your one though. Yeah, your one's the big cheeseburger.
Number one. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. So my big top movie of the year is Dune. The science fiction. Seen this. Oh, it's so good. The science fiction adaptation of Frank Herbert's granddaddy of all science fiction novels, Dune. So for those that don't know, Dune is kind of like the Lord of the Rings for science fiction. Basically, any sci-fi film that you or book that you've read after this came out has been in some way influenced by the Dune series. Follows Paul Atreides, who is the son of Duke Leto Atreides. And their house is informed by the Emperor that they will be taking over the planet Arrakis, or Dune, which they harvest a very rare spice mineral that basically allows them to fold space so they can do warp travel. And it also gives people like these like strange visions and stuff like that. However, what the Atreides don't know is that they are walking into a trap set up by the Emperor and the former holders of Arrakis, the Harkonnens, who plan to betray and ambush the Atreides and destroy them. It's kind of like a double cross. So I read this novel before this movie came out. I wanted to finish Dune. It's like 900 pages, big chonker. And I love the book. It is very political. A lot of great imagery in the books, a lot of really interesting characters. As you're reading it, like you can start seeing all of the little pieces where like, oh, Star Wars got this, Star Trek got like all the little pieces of where different science fiction tropes and stuff have come from Dune. Back in the 80s, I think 84, they adapted this into a terrible, horrible movie that is just the worst. And they tried to take like a 900-page book and condense it into a 2-hour movie. You can guarantee how successful that is. So though this is just titled Dune, this is in fact Dune Part 1. There will be a second film coming out next year that will adapt the rest of the story. And yeah, everything about this film clicked for me. The cinematography is phenomenal. The soundtrack is phenomenal, which I forgot to mention that about The Green Knight. That also is a phenomenal soundtrack. The acting, phenomenal. The only possibly negative thing I can actually say about this movie is that it might be too good of an adaptation for its own good. Myself and one other person in our watch party that went to go see this liked this movie. Everyone else in our group thought it was too slow and too confusing because the movie is so good at adapting its source material. I think it actually alienates a little bit and can be seen as a bit confusing. The marketing for this movie also kind of sucked because they were like, oh, Dune is the next Star Wars. It's the next Harry Potter. It's the next Lord of the Rings. Big film franchise. Everyone get on your seats and be happy. And Dune isn't anything like those movies. It's slower paced. It's more political. I'd say it has more in common with like Game of Thrones than it does with like Star Wars. I mean, there is a couple action sequences in Dune, all of which were in the trailers. If you watched any of the Dune trailers, you have seen all of the action scenes, or at least bits of every single action scene in this movie. It's more about like the characters and what they're going through in the themes. One of the big themes of this movie that I love, and I love from the book, was the breakdown and criticism of the standard hero's journey and the white savior trope. It kind of just shatters all of those expectations by presenting Paul as this messiah figure, but you learn that he's actually like the people native to Arrakis believe him to be this, but it's actually lies generated by another organization to control the people. But in the end, that backfires on them because Paul, through like a spice vision, realizes that he is going to lead all of these people, overthrow the Empire, and they are going to cause a giant genocide throughout the galaxy in his name, and he can't stop it. So a lot of really like serious themes and stuff in this movie. I love everything about it. It has my single favorite scene of this year. Towards the middle end of the movie, it's kind of like at the end of the second act. House Atreides is kind of under attack, and they're surprised, they're ambushed, and like all their soldiers are running out, and you just see like their ships are just being bombarded. They're blowing up over all these troops' heads, and they're like general guy Gunry Halleck, who's played by Josh Brolin or Thanos, kind of turns to his men and he's like, "With me!" And he draws a sword. They all charge in the battle against the enemy soldiers, and these bagpipes play, and I just get goosebumps every time I think about the scene. It's so good. Yeah. Another thing I love about this movie is, and this is something I liked about The Green Knight a lot too, is there are movies that show and don't tell. Some things I find with a lot of modern media is that they like to over-explain everything. I think because with the internet, they're afraid that you're going to have people online just picking apart their movie if they don't explain everything. And there are a lot of scenes of Dune of things just happening that aren't necessarily explained, and the movie's stronger for it. Like the best example, so the Empire has these soldiers called the Sardaukar, and they're these like super elite soldiers, bloodthirsty warriors. They're trained from a young age to fight and to kill viciously. And you see them on their home planet preparing for their invasion of the Atreides family. And it literally, the scene is like two guys, and they're like, these are the Sardaukar, and that's all they say. You have this dude on like a platform doing this deep voice chanting thing when he's doing this thing with his hands. They're marking these people with blood, and then behind them you have all of these other people crucified upside down, having their blood drained out and leaked into these like blood lakes that they've made that they're using to like mark these people. Don't explain what's going on. Don't explain what ritual they're doing, who these unfortunate victims are, why they're doing this. They just leave it open to your interpretation. I've seen a few different interpretations online about what's going on, and all of them are great. All of them are valid. So if you're looking for a fantastic movie to jump into, I highly recommend this. Definitely my number one. If I had any criticisms, it's a little slowly paced. It's like almost 3 hours long. You think the movie is going to end, and then you still have like 40 minutes of the movie left. I actually thought it ended where it was going to end just from reading the book. I'm like, I think this is where they'll divide it. I was right. The other funny thing too is a Zendaya in the movie. Obviously, you see her name on the poster here. So Zendaya is literally in all the marketing. Like Timothée Chalamet plays Paul, and she is next to him in every friggin' shot of a 2 hour and 40-minute movie. Zendaya is in the movie, and I looked this up for 7 minutes because she plays a character that doesn't matter as much until the second half of the book, and she's really only seen through Paul's visions. So we go and see this movie at AMC, and Eric's wife is basically outright to admit, I'm here to see Zendaya. And we see this group of, I would say they're like probably late high school, early college age girls, and they're like, they're talking about how they're just seeing this movie to see Zendaya. Like they're like, when their boyfriends is there, they're just telling them like, we're just seeing this for Zendaya. And we walk out of the theater and they're just like, what the fuck did we just watch? Like, she wasn't even in the movie. And I'm just laughing as I'm listening to him because I'm like, her character is, if they end where I think they're gonna end, she's barely going to be in this thing, and it's hilarious because this movie has an all-star cast, but the people who are like hyped up might have 5 minutes of total screen time. It's pretty humorous in a way. But yeah, Dune, I love this. Watch it. Part 2 comes out next year. Love it.
I actually know it was that soon.
I was hoping it was going to be. Well, what's so weird about Dune is, so unlike, say, The Lord of the Rings, where they like shot everything, they just shot the first one. Denis Villeneuve, who did Blade Runner 2049, he did Arrival, both fantastic movies. They basically were just like, you get one shot, and if it doesn't work well, people just get half a movie series then. So there was a big push of like Dune fans to be like, go see this movie. And then Paramount, I think, did this. Was it Paramount? I don't remember. They were like, oh, we're putting it on HBO Max too. Same day, actually a day earlier than you can see it in theaters. And this movie definitely did pretty well box office wise. But that's just because like the hype. I mean, I told people, I was like, don't watch it on your home like stream. Like I've watched my 4K copy of it and it's great. but watching it in theaters with like the full IMAX surround sound, like just the whole theater vibrating from everything, like it's a movie that deserved to be seen on the big screen, and I think that got across to people. Also, if you're interested in Dune, check the book out. It's really, really good.
Yeah, it's a book that I've had in my cart like for the last like year or two, and I just haven't ever taken the dive into it.
I really recommend it. It's one of those books that it's a very talky, but I was never bored. Like I was always interested in what was going to happen next. And I've read the sequel, Dune Messiah, which is very different tonally. And then for Christmas, I got the third book, Children of Dune, which I read like one chapter of and then put it down to read something else, and I need to go back to it. But I like the series. It's really interesting. Don't watch the 84 movie. It's really bad. It's so bad. We do bad movie nights with another friend of ours, and to prep for Dune, we were like, we're gonna watch the old Dune because it supposedly sucks. It's the only film we've ever turned off halfway through. We're like, we're done. We can't do this anymore. And we've watched bad movies. Like we've watched just absolute trash, and we were just like, oh my god, 1984's Dune, just kill me. This is horrible. It makes the grievous movie sin of not doing your inner dialogue well. Like Dune has a lot of like internal monologues, and you know, a lot of times when you adapt a movie or a book for a movie, you include a lot of those inner character motivations as dialogue or very brief moments of, you know, internal monologue. 1984's Dune idea is to have the lead actor stare at the camera for a full 30 seconds as voice narration just happens around him, just staring. And it is as painfully awkward as you think it would be. I'm going to let you know how messed up that old movie is. For a while, they gave people who went to see it in the theaters a pamphlet that explained to them what Dune was about and all the names and like terminology and basically the plot of the novel because the movie was incoherent. So I also own that movie because I bought it for $5 and I kind of feel like I should finish it, but I haven't, so... So yeah, there's my number one, Dune.
McDonald's money.
Yeah.
McDonald's money. The problem is, I think the Big Mac was more worth it than
the movie.
1984.
The 5 minutes of eating the Big Mac was more enjoyable.
Yeah. Fun fact about that movie, Patrick Stewart is in it, and he originally wasn't supposed to be. They casted someone else as his character, and they called him by mistake. And so he just showed up on set, and the director was like, why are you here? And he's like, I'm this character. He's like, casting, did you screw up? Yeah. All right, Patrick Stewart, I guess you're in the movie then. And then he became that character.
That's great.
Which I think is just the funniest thing ever. Yeah. Well, there's everyone's top 10 films of 20, top 10 and one top 9.
Top
films
5
of 2021.
Top 5.
I mean, if you want a 10, it's not a movie. Arcane, best series ever made. Watch Arcane. I will shill that until the day I die. I'm waiting for season 2. Please come.
That's our anime.
That's what she said.
Stream title. You know, it's
please come.
2 top 10s and a top 5
with
honorable mentions.
And number 10
stream
is Arcane, which is not
Spring season.
Spring season.
Yeah, well, because you always have to have like some weird thing that makes no sense in the title as well. That like just like describes like when it takes place, but it doesn't actually take place then.
Librarian Club. Plus.
Librarian.
Yeah. Yeah, it's plus, and there's nothing else. It's just plus. I think, is this like a sequel? Is it? And then there's just nothing.
No, it's just more.
Yep. There's no explanation why it's called plus, but it is.
Well, hopefully, if anyone watched this, they got a new movie or two to watch. I know I did from a couple lists, and we'll have to see if any of our any of our missing D&D buddies watch this stream and have comments on our lists and the things that we added. So yeah, watch Dune. If you took anything away from this, watch Dune. That's all I care about.
Watch everything.
Yeah, watch everything.
Watch the third Fate
media.
So then you have no idea.
If you watch everything on these lists, including, and you have to watch the dupes twice because that's only fair. If you watch everything on this list, Brendan will write you a letter about how much he loves you.
Not do any of that.
And it'll be a handwritten letter with hearts on the eye dots.
I actually
it'll be about
fan fiction.
I don't know if I even have the ability to handwrite a letter at this point in time. I have forgotten how to do all of that because it was not important.
Yeah, computers change things.
Computers did change things.
Well, I don't got anything else. No. Yay.
Okay. Well,
this is fun. It was fun talking with you guys.
Yes.
I was going to say these little nice, quiet streams, they're fun.
Passover of everyone's top 10. We got Nick's here with the big old Spider-Man on top. Spider-Man's great. Great movie. Yes. Watch Spider-Man. William Dafoe is an absolute mad lad for doing his own stunts. I cannot believe he did it. Good job on him.
And excellent acting. Holy smokes.
He did amazing. Oh my god. Stole the movie, honestly.
Yeah.
He still got it. Good job, William Dafoe. Then we got the good old DMs ones here. We got Dune at the top. Dune's know nothing about it, but apparently it's great. Everything I've heard from people that know Dune say it's great. So
sand drugs.
That's great.
Sand drugs. Like I said, Dune's one of those movies. Our watch group, me and my buddy Mike liked it. Everyone else did not like it. So your mileage may vary on my top 4 are all probably your mileage. My top 5, given what Last Night in Soho is, are probably your mileage might vary. Except for Fate. Everyone will love Fate. I will make sure that everyone loves Fate.
I will make sure.
I will come to your house and I will put it on.
The Elyssia stream has just been a long con into getting everybody to watch Fate.
You don't even know that the whole game takes place in the Fate universe. It's a spin-off. It's going to be revealed. And it's gonna blow everyone's mind.
We're just gonna go to some random city and Saber's gonna show up. We're like, okay.
Yes. Fate is gonna be driving a car and turn around and look at us, and it's gonna be the greatest superhero reveal you have ever seen.
We're like, and then,
that is the humanization of Fate.
Is it a car?
Yep.
I'm sure you could find someone that's one of those big like decals, and they put just like one of the Fate characters on the car.
Oh, there's probably plenty of them.
Probably a ton of them. It's a lot of well-liked lady characters in that show. Oh, yeah. Plus, you have a mobile gacha game called Fate Grand Order, which is literally collect babes and be the time police. I have not done anything with the mobile game. I don't want to. I can't anymore. It's just too much.
Gacha games are a lot.
Much Fate.
Suck. Oh, it's not too much Fate. It's too much gacha game, man.
Yeah.
I started one called Princess Connect, because I watched an anime for that, and it came out last year in January. And I was like religiously playing this stupid game like every day until like September. And in summer, there was a character I wanted really bad. I saved up all my gems for this character so I could pull the snot out of it. And I still didn't get the character. And then I was like, I'm going to spend money. And I spent $10 and I still didn't get the character. And I looked at my phone and I said, I could have got McDonald's. And I stopped playing the game at that point.
I love how McDonald's has been our threshold for.
Yeah.
If I could go and get a Big Mac for that money,
throw away money.
It's more enjoyable.
Towards something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mortal Kombat 10 worth the price of the Big Mac. Spending $10 in a gacha game and whatever the other thing I said that wasn't worth the price of a Big Mac, not worth the price of a Big Mac.
Dune 84.
Dune from 84.
Dune 84. See, I hate it so much, I already purged it from my memory.
The only thing I know about that movie is that the shields are giant boxes, and it makes no sense,
they look like
it looks terrible.
Giant PS1 graphic boxes. I gotta show this to you, Nick. Can we just show the clip? Can we just roll the clip?
Probably not.
Okay.
That is probably copyrightable, and I don't want to deal with that. I know Corridor, who I mentioned earlier.
Oh, it's so bad.
They not only broke down the VFX of Dune, they also then went in and they redid the shields in the new Dune with the old Dune effects. And it is the funniest thing ever.
All right, Nick, I'm popping this into the thing here. You need to watch this. To let you know, to give you context real quick, this film came out in 1984. Star Wars Return of the Jedi came out a year earlier, and you tell me what's wrong with this scene. I believe it came out a year earlier. I'm going to fact check myself real quick.
Oh, I looked that up real quick.
Shield practice. Yeah, here we go.
1983, so a year earlier.
Just being indoctrinated by Microsoft.
Yeah, I got
Hope
a
was
Microsoft.
1977.
Must buy Surface Pro 8.
You'd love to see it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, no, it is awful
so
how they
bad.
look.
It's so bad.
Oh man.
I love when I think it's Patrick Stewart just jumps at him and it just looks like a giant like block of tofu, red tofu just jumping at the guy.
The hand halfway through the shield is just...
It's so bad.
You can tell because Dune is one of those things I think that it's so like grand and big, like you need a ton of money to like, well, I think the new movie did a really good job, but back then you need a ton of money to make it work. And you can just tell they gave the poor, I can't remember who directed it, but
yeah.
They just gave the poor director just David Lynch directed it. They gave him just like boo-foo money. They were just like, here's a roll of quarters, make Dune.
All right. Well,
I do love the inner dialogue. It's like he's whispering to himself.
Yes, it's so weird. Well, there's literally a scene where he's just staring at the camera for like 20 seconds, and he's just like, "How do I feel about going to Arrakis? What will I find there?" And
he's not making this.
I also love the opening of this film is like this princess. She's like the chronicler. Like she provides all this like context like before each chapter. She like comes in and like for 5 whole minutes it gives this long exposition dump, and her like she just fades in and out. So like she'll be in the shot and then she'll just fade out while talking, and then she'll fade back into the shot, and then she'll fade back out of the shot, and I'm just like, what is happening right now? Brendan, you need to come over and we need to watch 1984's Dune.
We are still going. I have no interest in watching that movie.
I'm glad we're still. I figured we were still going. I didn't think we stopped.
No. Although I'm probably about to do that.
Oh, Matt! I see Matt.
Yeah,
Matt
posted. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and deafen myself here, and we're gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna get through the wrapping up. I'm gonna mute the audio too for the music here. So no more turnabout jazz. Apologies if that was jarring, by the way. I changed the music in the middle of it for no reason. I don't know. I felt like changing it. It's like, look, we've been going. We're a little over. Plus we're done with it, and we'll be here literally all night if I don't put an end to it at some point. So, as far as all the normal stuff, VODs 12 p.m. EST the next day, always ! VODs will pull that up. You can also there's links and stuff below the actual stream. You can check that out if you need to look at those or see what we talked about and stuff and see the rankings. As far as other stuff, tomorrow at the relatively normal time, probably starting around 6 again, which has been kind of like the actual like scheduled time and the somewhat normal time for what I've been doing, which is Dark Souls 1, doing fist and fist weapons only. It has been an absolute nightmare, but also really fun. We're going to see that. We beat ONS, and we got one of the Lord Souls. So we're going to go and try to get the other 3. I'm scared of 4 Kings, which is not a statement I thought I would ever say when playing that game. That boss is free, and having fist weapons only means I don't know if I can pass the DPS check, so we'll see. Everything else shouldn't be too bad. Gwyn will be maybe a little bit of a tricky boss, but we'll see. And I'll probably talk a lot about the randomizer that I did over the weekend, which was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing a Dark Souls 1 randomizer, and I might do it again sometime. As far as other stuff, I think that covers it. No notifications. I don't think I'll be doing anything to cover next week, since we're not doing an actual session next week, and no one will really be here. So it would just be me, and I don't think I'm going to do anything, really. I might do something like really silly if I can come up with some ideas, but As of right now, I have no plans other than probably doing homework or playing other games on myself or by myself. But yeah. Until then.